Kurama was right, danger was coming. And Izuku was ready for it. Welcome back, ChronoCrew Legends. In this timeline, Deku doesn't carry one for all. He carries something older, something fiercer. With Kurama fully awakened and training him harder than ever, Izuku now walks into battle with precision, control, and a rising power that's shaking the very system. In this episode, he faces the hero killer, and it's not just about winning. It's about what kind of hero he's becoming, and when the final exams arrive. Let's just say, All Might meets the Golden Cloak up close. 150 likes unlocks Part 3, where the forest burns and destiny strikes. Let's dive back into the timeline. The address on Izuku's phone led to a dilapidated apartment building in an aging neighborhood. Graffiti decorated the concrete walls and the stairs creaked ominously as he climbed to the 4th floor. This is not what I expected, Izuku thought, adjusting his backpack. Appearances can be deceiving, Kurama replied within his mind. Some of the most powerful shinobi I've known lived in humble surroundings. Power doesn't always seek luxury. Standing before apartment 4C, Izuku knocked firmly. When no response came, he knocked again, louder. Gran Torino-san? It's Midoriya Izuku from Yae. Still nothing. With growing concern, Izuku tested the door. It swung open easily, unlocked. The apartment's interior was dimly lit and cluttered, with outdated furniture and an unnerving stillness. Hello? Is anyone I? His words died as he spotted a small figure lying face down in a pool of red liquid. For a horrifying moment, Izuku thought he'd stumbled upon a murder scene, until his nose caught the distinctive scent. Ketchup, he realized, releasing the chakra he'd instinctively gathered. Behind you, Kurama warned suddenly. Izuku pivoted, barely dodging a blur of white and yellow that shot past him with astonishing speed. The blur ricocheted off walls before landing atop a refrigerator, revealing itself as a tiny elderly man in a white and yellow costume. Too slow, the old man cackled. If I were a villain, you'd be dead. Gran Torino, I presume? Izuku asked, relaxing his stance slightly. The diminutive hero leapt down with surprising agility for his apparent age. You've got sharp senses to detect my approach. Most don't until I've already landed a hit. He wiped ketchup from his costume with casual indifference. So you're All Might's little project. The boy with the fox. Izuku's eyes widened. You know about Kurama? I know enough, Gran Torino replied cryptically. Enough to recognize something ancient when I see it. That golden energy you displayed at the sports festival isn't from this world, is it? How could you possibly know that? Izuku asked, genuinely stunned. The old hero snorted. I've been around longer than quirks themselves, boy. I've seen things most have forgotten or never knew. He tapped his cane against the floor. But explanations can wait. First, show me what you can do. Without warning, Gran Torino launched himself at Izuku again, ricocheting off walls at blinding speed. This time, Izuku was prepared. He channeled chakra to enhance his reflexes, tracking the old hero's movements with trained precision. When Gran Torino came in for a strike, Izuku sidestepped and attempted a counter, only for the old man to change direction mid-air, completely defying expected momentum. His quirk allows perfect control over his trajectories, Izuku analyzed, blocking a kick that carried surprising force. He's good, Kurama acknowledged. For a human his age, his body shouldn't move like that. There's more to his power than just bouncing. For several minutes, they exchanged attacks in the confined apartment, furniture becoming impromptu obstacles and launch points. Izuku managed to avoid most strikes but landed none of his own. The old hero was simply too fast, too unpredictable. Finally, Gran Torino disengaged, landing atop his kotatsu with barely a sound. Not bad, he admitted. Your reflexes are excellent, and your chakra control is precise. But you're still thinking too conventionally, trying to predict where I'll be based on physics that don't apply to my quirk. Izuku nodded, accepting the critique. I noticed. Your movements defy normal trajectories. Exactly, Gran Torino grinned. In this world of quirks, conventional physics often don't apply. That's your first lesson. His expression grew more serious. Now, about that golden form I saw in the sports festival. The partial transformation you used against Todoroki. Show me. Izuku hesitated. It's not something I use casually. The full transformation puts significant strain on my body. I didn't ask for excuses, I asked for a demonstration, Gran Torino replied sharply. If you're worried about damaging my apartment, don't be. This building is reinforced for hero training, has been for decades. Might as well humor him, Kurama suggested. A small demonstration won't hurt. just enough to show him what we're capable of. Nodding, Izuku closed his eyes and focused inward. The connection with Kurama had grown stronger since the sports festival, making the transition smoother. Golden chakra began to flow around him, forming the distinctive aura that marked Kurama's direct influence. Gran Torino's eyes widened slightly as the transformation took hold. The golden energy coalesced around Izuku, not the full cloak from the USJ incident, but a controlled, partial manifestation centered around his torso and arms. Interesting, the old hero murmured, approaching carefully. It's not just an energy field, it's alive somehow. Responsive. He extended a hand toward the aura but stopped short of touching it. And ancient. Very ancient. This is Kurama's chakra, Izuku explained, his voice carrying that slight resonant quality it gained in this form. It's significantly more potent than my own, enhancing all my capabilities. And the strain? All Might mentioned your body has limits for maintaining this state. Currently about 8 minutes at this level of manifestation, Izuku replied. Less if I use high-output techniques. We're working on extending that duration through training. Gran Torino circled him slowly, studying the transformation from all angles. The chakra doesn't just surround you, it interfaces with your own energy network. Like a symbiosis. That's remarkably accurate, Izuku admitted, surprised by the old hero's insight. Release it for now, Gran Torino instructed. No need to waste energy on demonstrations. As the golden chakra receded, the old hero moved to his kitchenette, casually preparing tea as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Sit, he commanded, gesturing to the kotatsu. Izuku complied, watching curiously as Gran Torino arranged 2 cups with methodical precision. Now, the old hero began, sliding a cup toward Izuku. Let's discuss why I requested you specifically for this internship. You said in your offer that you know what I am, Izuku prompted. Gran Torino nodded, sipping his tea. I recognize power that doesn't belong to our world when I see it. Before quirks emerged, there were other things. Phenomena, entities, energies that defied explanation. Most were forgotten when quirks became the dominant paradigm. His shrewd eyes fixed on Izuku. But some of us remember. You're saying you've encountered beings like Kurama before? Not exactly like your fox, no. But similar enough in nature to recognize the signature. Gran Torino set his cup down firmly. The real question isn't what I know, it's what you plan to do with that power. All Might seems to think you're destined for greatness. All Might has been supportive, Izuku acknowledged. But our training together was brief. There's still much about chakra he doesn't understand. Toshinori never was one for the mystical aspects of power, Gran Torino chuckled. Too straightforward, that boy. But he recognized something in you worth nurturing. The old hero's expression hardened. What he may not have emphasized enough is the responsibility that comes with housing such power. Kurama has taught me extensively about responsibility, Izuku replied with quiet confidence. In his world, those who contained beings like him, Jinchuriki, often faced fear and isolation because of their power. Gran Torino leaned forward slightly. And does your fox speak to you now? Can he hear our conversation? He can, Izuku confirmed. Kurama perceives everything I do, though he typically remains silent unless he has something to contribute. Then perhaps he'd like to contribute now, Gran Torino suggested, staring intently at Izuku. I'd like to hear directly from the Ancient One. Izuku glanced inward, seeking Kurama's opinion. The fox considered for a moment before nodding his massive head. A brief conversation couldn't hurt. The old one seems to have genuine insight. Closing his eyes, Izuku entered a light meditative state, allowing Kurama to take partial control. When his eyes opened again, they had transformed to vertical slits, his expression shifting to something more primal and ancient. You're perceptive for a human. Kurama's deep voice emerged from Izuku's mouth. Few in this world would recognize energy from another reality. Gran Torino showed no surprise at the transformation, simply nodding as if his suspicions had been confirmed. I've lived a long time, Fox. Seen things most would consider impossible. He leaned forward. What exactly are you? And what brought you to our world? I am Kurama, the 9-tailed fox, strongest of the tailed beasts from a world where chakra, not quirks, defined power. Kurama replied with undisguised pride. As for how I came here, a hint of uncertainty entered his voice. Death should have been my end. Instead, I found myself bound to Izuku from his birth, a connection neither of us fully understands. Interesting, Gran Torino mused. And your intentions toward our world? Kurama's borrowed face formed a slight smirk. If I wished destruction, old one, you would have witnessed it long ago. My past was defined by rage and hatred, but circumstances have changed my perspective. Through Izuku, I have found purpose beyond mere existence. Teaching him to be a hero, teaching him to be himself, Kurama corrected. The hero path was his choice, one I support. Gran Torino studied Izuku's transformed features carefully. And when your power fully awakens in him, when the limitations fall away, what then? Then, Kurama replied evenly, you will witness something this world has never seen before. A perfect Jinchuriki with access to the full power of a tailed beast. But have no fear, old one. Izuku's moral compass is stronger than even my influence. With that, the vertical slits faded and Izuku blinked, returning to himself. Sorry if that was abrupt, he apologized. Maintaining the connection for conversation requires considerable focus. Gran Torino waved dismissively. No need for apologies. Your fox is forthright. I appreciate that. He stood suddenly, his demeanor shifting to something more energetic. Well, that settles it. Starting tomorrow, we begin proper training. Training for what specifically? Izuku asked, somewhat disoriented by the old hero's rapid mood change. To extend your transformation time, of course. Gran Torino declared as if it were obvious. 8 minutes isn't nearly enough for real hero work. By the time you leave this internship, you'll double that at minimum. Izuku's eyes widened. Double it? In just a week? With my guidance and your fox's power? Absolutely. The old hero pointed his cane at Izuku dramatically. The limitations aren't in your body, boy. They're in your mind. You're still thinking of the fox's chakra as separate from your own. Once you truly integrate, the strain will diminish significantly. Integration, Izuku murmured thoughtfully. He's not entirely wrong, Kurama commented within his mind. Though the physical limitations are real, your mental approach does create unnecessary barriers. We could experiment with deeper synchronization. Get some rest, Gran Torino instructed, suddenly looking tired himself. Tomorrow we start at dawn, and clean up that ketchup on your way out. He shuffled toward a bedroom, muttering about ancient foxes and kids these days. Left alone in the main room, Izuku processed the unexpected encounter. Gran Torino was nothing like he'd anticipated, neither the frail old man he'd initially appeared to be nor the straightforward mentor he'd expected. What do you think, Kurama? He asked silently as he cleaned up the spilled ketchup. He knows more than he's revealing, the fox replied thoughtfully. His energy feels unusual for this world, not like other humans I've sensed. There's depth there, experience that goes beyond his apparent years. Do you think he can really help us extend the transformation time? Perhaps. His insight about integration has merit. Kurama's mental voice carried a hint of curiosity. At minimum, this week should prove interesting. As Izuku settled into the small guest room Gran Torino had indicated, he reviewed the day's events in his mind. The enigmatic old hero represented yet another unexpected turn in his journey, one that promised both challenges and potential growth. Integration, he murmured, testing the concept. Treating Kurama's chakra not as borrowed power, but as an extension of my own. It was a compelling idea, one that aligned with the deepening bond he'd formed with the NineTails. As sleep claimed him, Izuku's dreams were filled with golden light and possibilities, the path forward beginning to take clearer shape in his mind. The real training would begin tomorrow. Dawn arrived with a jarring crash as Gran Torino kicked open Izuku's door without ceremony. Up, 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 the old hero shouted, tapping his cane rhythmically against the doorframe. Daylight's wasting and we've got integration to achieve. Izuku, already awake and performing his morning meditation, opened his eyes calmly. Good morning, Gran Torino-san. The old hero paused, apparently surprised to find his student alert and composed. Humph. At least you're not lazy. Breakfast in 5 minutes, then we head out. He turned to leave before adding, hope you like taiyaki. It's all I ever make. 30 minutes later, Izuku found himself in an abandoned warehouse several blocks from Gran Torino's apartment. The vast, empty space was clearly designed for quirk training, with reinforced walls and various obstacles scattered strategically throughout. This facility belongs to an old friend, Gran Torino explained, gesturing expansively. We can train here without worrying about collateral damage or prying eyes. It's perfect, Izuku agreed, already assessing the training possibilities. Now, before we begin with the flashy stuff, I need to understand your current limitations precisely. The old hero perched on a concrete block, surprisingly nimble despite his age. Activate your transformation, the full version you used at USJ, not the partial one from the sports festival. Izuku nodded, centering himself. Ready? Kurama? Always, the fox replied, his massive tail swishing in anticipation. Drawing deeply on their connection, Izuku called forth Kurama's chakra in its complete form. Golden energy erupted around him, forming the distinctive cloak that outlined Kurama's fox-like features, complete with ears and multiple tails of energy extending behind him. The concrete beneath his feet cracked slightly from the pressure as the transformation stabilized. Unlike previous manifestations, Izuku maintained perfect control, the energy neither fluctuating nor leaking unnecessarily. Impressive, Gran Torino acknowledged, circling Izuku with analytical eyes. The chakra density is remarkable, and you say you can maintain this for approximately 8 minutes now. Under normal conditions, Izuku confirmed, his voice carrying that resonant quality. Less if I use high-output techniques. Show me one such technique, Gran Torino instructed, stepping back to a safer distance. Something that accelerates chakra consumption. Izuku extended his hand, focusing Kurama's chakra into a spiraling sphere. The Rasengan formed instantly, significantly larger than his standard version and glowing with intense golden light. Rasengan is a chakra-intensive technique on its own, he explained. When enhanced with Kurama's energy, its power increases exponentially, but so does the strain. I see. Gran Torino nodded thoughtfully. Release it against that concrete pillar. I want to observe the energy dispersion. Izuku complied, dashing forward and slamming the enhanced Rasengan into the designated target. The pillar didn't merely crack. It exploded outward, chunks of concrete flying in all directions before Izuku's chakra cloak automatically caught the debris that flew back toward him. Control and power, Gran Torino noted with approval. But I noticed the flicker in your cloak immediately after. The technique drained a significant portion of your reserves. Approximately 30 seconds of transformation time, Izuku confirmed, feeling the increased strain. Techniques like that significantly reduce how long I can maintain this form. As I suspected, the old hero stroked his mustache thoughtfully. The problem isn't just duration, it's efficiency. You're treating the fox's chakra as a separate power source that you draw from, rather than an integrated part of your own energy system. How do we change that approach? Izuku asked, releasing the transformation to conserve energy. Through understanding what truly happens during your transformation. Gran Torino leapt with surprising agility to stand directly before Izuku. When you channel the fox's chakra, what exactly do you feel? Izuku considered the question carefully. Power, certainly, but also connection. Like a river flowing into my own chakra network, enhancing everything it touches. And that's precisely the issue, Gran Torino exclaimed, tapping Izuku's chest with his cane. You're thinking of it as a river flowing into you, rather than your river growing larger. The distinction is subtle but crucial. I'm not sure I understand, Izuku admitted. Gran Torino sighed, his expression suggesting he expected this response. Sit, he commanded, pointing to the floor. We're going to try something different. As Izuku settled into a cross-legged position, the old hero continued. Close your eyes. I want you to enter your deepest meditative state, the place where you communicate directly with the fox. My mindscape, Izuku nodded, closing his eyes and beginning the familiar process of deep meditation. Exactly. But this time, I want you to focus specifically on the boundary between your chakra and the fox's. Where exactly does one end and the other begin? Within moments, Izuku found himself standing in the familiar forest clearing that represented his mindscape. Kurama lounged nearby, his massive form dwarfing the surrounding trees, NineTails swishing with interest. The old one has insight, the fox acknowledged. This exercise has merit. Izuku approached Kurama, studying the visible manifestation of their energies. His own chakra appeared as a blue aura surrounding his form, while Kurama's was a deep, vibrant orange gold. Where they interfaced, particularly at points where Izuku drew on Kurama's power, the energies seemed to mix, creating a purple-hued boundary. I've never really examined this junction before, Izuku realized, focusing on the merged energies. It's not a clean division, more like a gradient. Of course not, Kurama replied, rising to his full height. We've been connected since your birth. 17 years of coexistence has blurred the boundaries considerably. He extended one massive paw. Touch the barrier. Feel what happens when you stop thinking of my chakra as separate. Hesitantly, Izuku reached toward the visible boundary between their energies. As his fingers contacted the purple haze, a strange sensation washed over him, not the overwhelming power he typically experienced when drawing on Kurama's chakra, but something more fundamental, like recognizing a part of himself he'd always possessed but never acknowledged. "It feels familiar," he murmured in surprise, "like it was always mine, because in a sense it was," Kurama explained, his deep voice unusually gentle. "Unlike previous Jinchuriki, you weren't forcibly bonded to me through sealing techniques. Our connection formed naturally from your birth. My chakra has influenced your development from the beginning." Izuku's eyes widened with realization. "So when I transform, you're not borrowing my power," Kurama finished. "You're accessing what was always part of you, just a deeper, more concentrated aspect that requires conscious effort to utilize." In the physical world, Gran Torino watched as a subtle change came over Izuku's meditative form. The tension in his shoulders released, and his breathing pattern shifted to something deeper, more harmonized. A faint golden glow began to emanate from his skin. Not the full transformation, but something more integrated, more natural. "He's getting it," the old hero murmured with satisfaction. Within the mindscape, Izuku continued exploring the boundary, now consciously attempting to blur it further. As he did, the purple zone expanded, his blue chakra and Kurama's gold merging more thoroughly. "This is integration," he realized. "Not drawing on your chakra as a separate entity, but acknowledging it as an extension of my own energy." "Precisely," Kurama nodded, observing the process with approval. "The strain you experience comes not from incompatibility, but from treating my chakra as foreign. When you truly accept it as part of yourself, the resistance diminishes." After what felt like hours in the mindscape, but was likely only minutes in reality, Izuku opened his eyes, returning to awareness of the warehouse. Gran Torino sat across from him, watching with knowing eyes. "Well," the old hero prompted, "what did you discover?" "The boundary isn't fixed," Izuku replied thoughtfully. "Kurama's chakra and mine, they're not completely separate entities. They can blend, integrate more fully than I've been allowing." "Exactly," Gran Torino exclaimed, jumping to his feet with surprising energy. "Now, try your transformation again, but with this new understanding. Don't think of calling upon the fox's power. Think of expanding your awareness to include what was always there." Izuku stood slowly, centering himself in this new perspective. Rather than the familiar process of drawing on Kurama's chakra as a separate source, he focused on expanding his awareness to encompass the deeper reservoirs that had always been part of him. The transformation that followed was unlike any he'd experienced before. Instead of the golden energy erupting around him in a visible display, it seemed to flow outward from his core, manifesting with an effortless grace that lacked the usual strain. "Remarkable," Gran Torino murmured, circling Izuku with critical eyes. "The chakra density is the same, but the efficiency is vastly improved. How does it feel?" "Different," Izuku replied, examining the golden cloak with wonder. "Lighter somehow, though the power is unchanged. Like wearing a familiar garment rather than bearing a weight." "The strain is significantly reduced," Kurama confirmed within his mind. "This approach conserves energy that was previously lost in the transition." "Now maintain it," Gran Torino instructed. "Let's see how this affects your duration." What followed was a grueling series of tests, from basic movement exercises to advanced chakra manipulation, all designed to stress test the new integrated transformation. To Izuku's astonishment, the usual signs of strain remained minimal even after 10 minutes had passed. 12 minutes. Gran Torino announced when Izuku finally released the transformation, more from caution than necessity. A 50% improvement from a single session. "Not bad. It could have gone longer," Izuku admitted, barely winded. "I ended it as a precaution, not because I'd reached my limit." "Wise," the old hero approved. "Never push a new technique to breaking point immediately. Better to build gradually with consistent control." He checked his watch. "We'll rest for an hour, then try something more advanced." During their break, Izuku sat in quiet communication with Kurama, exploring the implications of their discovery. "This changes everything," he realized. "If the limitation wasn't physical but conceptual." "Don't get ahead of yourself, Kit," Kurama cautioned. "The physical limitations still exist. Your body must handle the increased chakra flow. What's changed is the efficiency, not the fundamental constraints. Still, if we can extend duration this significantly through conceptual adjustment alone, imagine what we could achieve with proper physical training to match." "Indeed," Kurama agreed, a hint of excitement in his mental voice. The old one may be eccentric, but his insight is valuable. When training resumed, Gran Torino introduced a new challenge. Now that we've improved your base transformation, let's address another limitation, the transition itself. The transition? Izuku questioned. How quickly you can activate and deactivate the form, the old hero clarified. In real combat, a slow transformation could be the difference between victory and defeat. You need to be able to switch instantaneously. What followed was a series of exercises focused entirely on rapid transition, activating the transformation for brief moments, then immediately releasing it over and over with decreasing intervals. Faster! Gran Torino barked, using his quirk to bounce unpredictably around the warehouse. A villain won't give you 3 seconds to power up. It must be instantaneous. By evening, Izuku could activate the integrated transformation in under a second. A vast improvement from the several seconds it had previously required. More importantly, he could maintain precise control even during these rapid transitions, ensuring no energy was wasted. As they returned to Gran Torino's apartment, exhausted but satisfied, the old hero offered rare direct praise. You learn quickly, he acknowledged. Most students would have taken days to grasp the concept of integration, let alone implement it effectively. I had excellent guidance, Izuku replied honestly. Both from you and Kurama. Gran Torino smiled slightly, the expression softening his usually gruff demeanor. The fox chose well, he said quietly. Not everyone could handle such power responsibly. That night, as Izuku prepared for sleep, Kurama spoke from within their shared mindscape. The training is valuable, but don't forget why we're here, the fox cautioned. The old one requested you specifically because he recognized what I am. There's more to his knowledge than he's revealed. You think he has an ulterior motive? Izuku asked, concerned. Not necessarily negative, Kurama clarified, but specific. He wants something from our partnership, information perhaps, or confirmation of some theory. We should remain open but vigilant. Izuku nodded mentally, acknowledging the wisdom in Kurama's caution. Despite Gran Torino's helpful training, the old hero's true motivations remained opaque. A puzzle yet to be solved. As sleep claimed him, Izuku's mind filled with possibilities. The integration technique had unlocked new potential in their partnership, blurring the boundaries between himself and Kurama in ways that promised significant growth. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new techniques to master. But for now, the simple realization that Kurama's power had always been part of him. Not separate, not foreign, but an intrinsic aspect of his own energy, provided a profound sense of completion. The Jinchuriki and the tailed beast becoming truly one. The third day of internship brought a change in focus. Rather than continuing the transformation training directly, Gran Torino led Izuku to a different facility, an open-air training ground on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by dense forest. Your cloak is impressive, the old hero acknowledged as they arrived. But raw power alone doesn't make a hero. Today, we focus on versatility and elemental mastery. I've been working with water and fire styles, Izuku noted. Though fire is still relatively new to my repertoire. Gran Torino nodded. So I've observed. But your natural affinity, based on what I saw at the sports festival, appears to be wind. That's accurate, Izuku confirmed, somewhat surprised by the old hero's perception. Kurama identified wind as my primary element years ago, though we've trained across multiple styles for versatility. Smart approach, Gran Torino approved. But today, we refine what comes naturally. Wind style is rare and exceptionally powerful when mastered. He gestured to the open field. Show me your most advanced wind technique, something beyond basic manipulation. Izuku considered for a moment, then nodded. Forming a sequence of hand seals, he focused his chakra. Wind style, vacuum wave. With a sharp exhalation, he released a blade-like gust of wind that cut through the air, slicing cleanly through several small trees at the field's edge before dissipating. Decent power, good control, Gran Torino assessed critically. But standard application. You're thinking too conventionally, using wind primarily as a cutting force. That's its most direct application, Izuku replied, slightly defensive. Perhaps in your fox's world, the old hero countered. But here, in a society of quirks, elemental versatility is key. He pointed toward a large boulder at the field's center. Wind isn't just about cutting, it's about pressure, about force multiplication. Try again, but instead of a blade, create a concentrated impact point. Understanding the concept, Izuku formed different hand seals, concentrating his chakra differently. Wind style, gale palm. The technique launched a concussive burst of wind that struck the boulder with tremendous force, creating a spiderweb of cracks across its surface without cutting it. Better, Gran Torino exclaimed. Now we're seeing adaptation. Next, combine it with movement. For the next several hours, they explored wind chakra applications that Izuku had never fully developed. Techniques focusing on mobility, defense, and subtle manipulation rather than just offensive cutting power. Wind style, pressure shield, Izuku called, creating a swirling barrier of compressed air that deflected Gran Torino's high-speed attacks. Good, the old hero approved, bouncing off the shield. Now transition, defense to offense without dropping the technique. Without breaking concentration, Izuku modified the shield, converting it from a defensive barrier to an expanding wave that forced Gran Torino backward. Excellent adaptation, the old hero called as he ricocheted away. Now combine with another element. Drawing on his secondary affinity, Izuku formed new seals. Wind and fire combination. Searing cyclone. The technique created a spiraling vortex of wind infused with flames, generating a controlled firestorm that scorched the training ground's center without spreading beyond the targeted area. Impressive control, Gran Torino noted as the technique dissipated. Your elemental combination shows promise, though the execution still lacks efficiency. The timing between elements is challenging, Izuku admitted. Transitioning from wind to fire requires a complete chakra nature shift. Then let's address that limitation, Gran Torino decided. The most versatile heroes can switch techniques instantaneously. What followed was a series of increasingly complex drills focused on rapid nature transformation, shifting between wind, water, and fire elements with minimal delay. By midday, Izuku could transition between elements in under a second, though the process still required conscious effort. Now, Gran Torino announced after a brief lunch break, let's combine elemental mastery with your shadow clones. A true master doesn't just switch elements, they deploy multiple simultaneously. Through clone coordination, Izuku realized, immediately grasping the tactical advantage. Each clone using a different element in synchronized attack patterns. Precisely. The old hero seemed pleased by Izuku's quick understanding. 3 clones, 3 elements, 1 cohesive strategy. Izuku formed the familiar cross seal, creating 3 perfect shadow clones. Each immediately began gathering chakra of a different nature, the original focusing on wind, while the clones prepared water, fire, and pure chakra respectively. Wind style, vacuum sphere, Izuku called, launching multiple small bullets of compressed air toward a target boulder. Water style, water bullet. The first clone followed immediately, its water projectiles following the same trajectory. Fire style, phoenix flower. The second clone added, smaller fire projectiles joining the barrage. Rasengan barrage. The third clone concluded, dashing forward with spiraling chakra spheres. The combined assault was devastating. Wind bullets created initial impact points. Water followed to exploit the cracks. Fire superheated the now wet stone. And finally, the Rasengan barrage shattered the weakened structure completely. Synchronized elemental assault. Gran Torino nodded approvingly. Effective against both stationary targets and opponents with elemental weaknesses. He stroked his mustache thoughtfully. But what about opponents who can counter multiple elements? Someone like Todoroki? That's where timing and unpredictability become crucial, Izuku replied, already analyzing potential counter strategies. Instead of simultaneous attacks, staggered deployment with feints to draw out specific defenses. Show me, the old hero challenged. For the remainder of the afternoon, they refined multi-elemental clone strategies against hypothetical opponents with various quirks and defenses. Izuku's tactical mind thrived under the challenge, developing increasingly sophisticated combinations that maximized each element's strengths while covering their inherent weaknesses. As evening approached, Gran Torino introduced a final concept. There's one more application of wind chakra we haven't explored. One particularly suited to your fighting style. What's that? Izuku asked, intrigued despite his fatigue. Chakra-enhanced taijutsu, the old hero replied. Specifically, wind nature enhancement of physical strikes. The concept was immediately compelling. Channeling wind chakra through limbs during close combat to increase penetration and impact. Exactly. Gran Torino approved. Let me demonstrate. He approached a training dummy, his small fist suddenly glowing with a faint aura. When he struck, the impact was disproportionate to his size. The dummy didn't just rock backward but split partially along the point of impact. Wind chakra creates a microscopic cutting edge around the striking surface, he explained. It doesn't just increase force, it bypasses conventional durability. Izuku's eyes widened at the implications. That would be effective against opponents with hardening quirks or defensive mutations. Precisely why you should master it, Gran Torino agreed. Your taijutsu fundamentals are solid, but against certain quirks, pure physical force has limitations. Under the old hero's guidance, Izuku began practicing the technique, starting with simple punches and gradually advancing to complex striking combinations, each enhanced with precisely controlled wind chakra. The sky had darkened to deep twilight by the time Gran Torino called an end to the session. Izuku's arms ached from hundreds of repeated strikes, but the results were undeniable. His wind-enhanced attacks could now penetrate reinforced concrete with minimal effort. You've made excellent progress, the old hero acknowledged as they prepared to return to his apartment. Tomorrow we'll combine these elemental refinements with your transformation techniques. As they walked back through the quiet streets, Gran Torino broke his usual pattern of gruff instruction with an unexpected question. The fox, Kurama, has he told you much about his original world? The one with other beings like himself. Izuku glanced at the old hero, surprised by the personal nature of the inquiry. Some, he replied carefully, enough to understand the basic structure of their society and power systems. There were 9-tailed beasts altogether, each with different abilities and elements. And were they always companions to humans, as he is to you? There was something in Gran Torino's tone, a searching quality that suggested more than casual curiosity. Izuku chose his words thoughtfully. No, he answered honestly. According to Kurama, the relationship between tailed beasts and humans in his world was complicated, often antagonistic. Jinchuriki, those who contained the beasts, were frequently seen as weapons or tools rather than partners. Yet he chose a different path with you, Gran Torino noted. Interesting. Kurama says our circumstances are unique, Izuku explained. In his world, the beasts were sealed into humans using specialized techniques. Our connection formed naturally without external force. The old hero nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps that's why. He murmured almost to himself. Why what? Izuku prompted. Gran Torino seemed to catch himself, waving dismissively. Nothing important. Just an old man's speculation. His usual gruff demeanor returned. Get some rest. Tomorrow's training will be even more intensive. That night, as Izuku soaked his aching muscles in the bath, Kurama's voice rumbled through their mental connection. The old one's questions are becoming more specific, the fox noted. He's building toward something. I noticed, Izuku agreed. Do you think he knows more about your origin than he's letting on? Unlikely, Kurama replied after consideration. But he seems to have encountered something similar enough to recognize patterns. His knowledge of chakra applications is surprisingly sophisticated for someone from this world. Should I ask him directly about his interest? Kurama's mental presence shifted thoughtfully. Not yet. Let him reveal his purpose in his own time. For now, his training has genuine value. That's enough reason to continue. As sleep claimed him that night, Izuku's dreams were filled with swirling elements and golden light, the day's training manifesting in his subconscious. But beneath these images ran a current of curiosity about Gran Torino's true motives and the knowledge he seemed to possess about powers that shouldn't exist in this world of quirks. Tomorrow would bring new techniques, new challenges, and perhaps new revelations. The fourth day began differently. Instead of immediate training, Gran Torino led Izuku to the roof of his apartment building before dawn, where they sat facing east in meditative postures. Today we advance beyond conventional chakra applications, the old hero announced quietly. Today we explore what makes your partnership with the fox truly unique. The tailed beast transformation, Izuku realized, feeling Kurama's interest stirring within. Gran Torino nodded. The golden cloak is impressive, but it's merely a manifestation of the fox's chakra through your system. A true Jinchuriki, from what little I understand, can achieve something far more significant, a partial manifestation of the beast itself. You mean chakra constructs? Izuku said, recalling Kurama's descriptions of previous Jinchuriki, like additional limbs or sensory organs formed from the beast's chakra. Precisely, the old hero confirmed. But such techniques require perfect harmony between container and contained, a unity of purpose and chakra flow that transcends conventional transformation. We've achieved significant integration already, Izuku noted. The efficiency improvements from our first session demonstrate that. Integration is merely the foundation, Gran Torino replied. What we seek now is synchronized manifestation, the ability to extend the fox's physical characteristics through your chakra network in controlled, specific ways. As the first rays of sunlight crested the horizon, bathing the rooftop in golden light, the old hero continued his explanation. The transformation you've shown thus far creates a chakra cloak that mimics the fox's general form, tails, ears, the overall silhouette. What we're attempting now is more precise, manifesting specific aspects with independent functionality. Like chakra arms, Izuku suggested, recalling Kurama's descriptions of Naruto's abilities. Exactly, Gran Torino approved. Extensions of will and power that operate independently of your physical limbs while remaining under complete control. The concept was both exciting and daunting. Where do we begin? With perfect stillness, the old hero replied, settling deeper into his meditative posture. Close your eyes. Find the fox within your mindscape. But instead of merging chakra as we did previously, focus on a single aspect of his form, one tail, for instance. Izuku complied, closing his eyes and slipping easily into the meditative state that accessed his inner world. Kurama waited there, 9 massive tails swaying behind his imposing form. I've been expecting this, the fox admitted. The old one understands more about Jinchuriki capabilities than he initially revealed. He wants me to manifest one of your tails independently, Izuku explained. Is that possible with our current level of integration? Possible, yes. Easy, no. Kurama shifted, bringing one of his tails forward for Izuku's examination. My tails are extensions of my will and chakra, independent yet connected. To manifest one requires precise visualization and chakra molding beyond what you've attempted thus far. Studying the massive appendage, Izuku noted its structure. Dense chakra formed into a physical manifestation, responsive to Kurama's thoughts without conscious movement. How do I begin? Focus on the sensation rather than the appearance, Kurama advised. What does it feel like to have an additional limb? How does chakra flow through it? What is its purpose? Following this guidance, Izuku centered his attention on a single point behind his lower back, where a tail would naturally extend if he possessed one. He imagined chakra flowing outward, forming a new pathway that hadn't existed before. In the physical world, Gran Torino observed with keen interest as golden chakra began to gather around Izuku's meditative form. Unlike the full transformation, this energy concentrated at a single point behind the boy, slowly extending outward in a tail-like projection. Remarkable, the old hero murmured. Such precise manifestation on the first attempt. Within his mindscape, Izuku felt the strange sensation of an appendage that both was and wasn't part of his physical body, a constructive pure chakra that responded to his will like an actual limb. I can feel it, he told Kurama with wonder. It's like having a third arm, but the sensations are different, more energetic than physical. That's the nature of chakra constructs, the fox explained. They exist at the intersection of energy and matter, tangible enough to interact with the physical world, but comprised entirely of molded chakra. As Izuku's concentration deepened, the sensation became more distinct. He could feel the air around the manifested tail, sense its position in space relative to his body. Now try movement, Kurama instructed, not by visualizing the tail moving, but by willing it as you would an actual limb. The instruction was counterintuitive but made sense. The construct was an extension of himself, not a separate entity to be controlled. With careful focus, Izuku directed his intention toward the newly formed appendage. Gran Torino's eyes widened slightly as the golden tail-like construct began to move, swaying gently at first, then with increasing confidence. It wasn't just energy flaring randomly, but a controlled extension responding to Izuku's will. Now try interaction, the old hero suggested, tossing a small stone toward Izuku's meditative form. Without opening his eyes, Izuku sensed the approaching object through the tail's energetic perception. With a quick mental command, he directed the construct to intercept, the golden tail flicking forward to bat the stone aside with surprising precision. Excellent, Gran Torino approved. The coordination is already developing. Now, maintain awareness of your physical body while continuing to operate the construct. The dual awareness was challenging, dividing attention between his normal senses and the new sensations flowing through the chakra tail. But gradually, Izuku achieved a balance, opening his eyes while maintaining the manifestation. I can see it, he realized, turning slightly to observe the golden tail extending from his lower back. It's smaller than Kurama's actual tails, but the form is similar. Size will come with practice and chakra capacity, Gran Torino assured him. What matters now is functional control. For the next hour, they worked on basic manipulation, using the chakra tail to move objects, create wind currents, and even as a third point of balance during movement exercises. By mid-morning, Izuku could maintain the construct indefinitely with minimal conscious effort. Now for the next stage, Gran Torino announced. Multiple manifestations. This proved significantly more challenging. Creating a second tail while maintaining the first required dividing his concentration in ways Izuku hadn't attempted before. His first efforts resulted in both constructs flickering unstably. "You're overthinking it," the old hero observed. "You don't consciously control each of your fingers separately when using your hands." The same principle applies here. Unified awareness, Kurama suggested within his mind. Don't think of them as separate tails, but as extensions of the same chakra system, like branches from a single tree. With this conceptual adjustment, Izuku tried again. Rather than attempting to form and control two distinct constructs, he visualized his chakra network expanding naturally, branching where appropriate. The result was immediate improvement, two golden tails now extended from his lower back, moving in synchronized patterns. Much better. Gran Torino approved. Now, different movements for each. By early afternoon, Izuku had mastered basic control of 3 simultaneous chakra tails, each capable of independent movement and interaction. The strain was noticeable but manageable, far less than maintaining the full transformation for an equivalent period. "The efficiency is impressive," the old hero noted as they paused for a brief rest. "These targeted manifestations consume significantly less chakra than your full cloak. They're more precise," Izuku explained, releasing the constructs temporarily to conserve energy, only manifesting exactly what's needed rather than transforming my entire chakra network. "A valuable tactical option," Gran Torino agreed. "Now, let's explore a different construct, one with more utility in hero work." For the remainder of the day, they focused on manifesting chakra arms, extensions from Izuku's shoulders that functioned as additional limbs. These proved more complex than tails, requiring finer motor control and more precise chakra molding. "The difficulty is worth the effort," Gran Torino explained as Izuku struggled with coordinating finger movements on the chakra hands. "Additional limbs multiply your combat and rescue capabilities exponentially." By sunset, Izuku could maintain 2 reasonably functional chakra arms alongside his physical ones capable of basic grasping, pushing, and pulling actions, though fine manipulation remained challenging. "Tomorrow we'll refine these techniques further," Gran Torino promised as they concluded the day's training. "But first, there's something we should discuss." The old hero led Izuku to a small park near his apartment, selecting a secluded bench away from passersby. His expression had grown serious, the usual gruffness replaced by something more contemplative. "You've made exceptional progress," he began. "Far beyond what I anticipated when requesting you for this internship. It's time I explained my interest more fully." Izuku nodded, sensing the importance of the moment. "I've been curious about why you specifically requested me, especially with your comment about knowing what I am." Gran Torino looked toward the setting sun, his aged features catching the golden light. Before quirks became common, this world had other things, phenomena that couldn't be explained by the science of the time. Most were forgotten when quirks emerged, categorized retroactively as early manifestations or dismissed as superstition. "But some were real," Izuku suggested. "Very real," the old hero confirmed. "I was young when quirks first began appearing, barely a teenager. But before that, I witnessed things that wouldn't be classified as quirks by today's standards. Things more elemental in nature, like chakra," Izuku realized. Gran Torino nodded. "Not called by that name and certainly not as refined as your techniques, but similar in essence. People who could manipulate energy in ways that defied conventional understanding." "What happened to them?" Izuku asked, genuinely curious. "Most integrated into quirk society as it emerged, their abilities retroactively classified as emitter-type quirks. Others kept their abilities secret, preferring anonymity to scrutiny." The old hero's gaze grew distant. "But there were rumors of something else. Entities that weren't human, composed of pure energy, occasionally bonding with compatible individuals." Izuku's pulse quickened. "Like Kurama." "Similar in concept, though I doubt identical in nature," Gran Torino clarified. These entities were described as elemental spirits or yokai in traditional terms, beings of fire, water, wind, or earth that could grant power to chosen partners. "Did you ever meet such individuals?" Izuku asked carefully. Gran Torino's expression shifted subtly. "Once, a woman with abilities remarkably similar to your wind techniques, though less refined, more instinctive. She claimed to share her body with what she called a wind spirit, a being that enhanced her natural abilities and occasionally manifested visibly during moments of extreme emotion. What happened to her? She disappeared during the early chaos of the quirk emergence period. Many exceptional individuals did, some by choice, others. The old hero left the implication hanging. What matters is that when I saw your golden transformation at the USJ incident, I recognized the pattern, a human channeling power from something ancient and elemental. So you requested me to confirm your theory, Izuku concluded. Partially, Gran Torino admitted, but also to ensure history doesn't repeat itself. Those with unique powers often face unique dangers, especially when those powers aren't understood within the dominant paradigm. You're concerned for my safety, Izuku realized, and for your development, the old hero added. Power without guidance often leads to tragedy, something I've witnessed too many times during my long career. The revelation provided context for Gran Torino's intensive training approach, not just building Izuku's capabilities, but preparing him for challenges specific to his unique situation. Thank you, Izuku said sincerely, for both the training and the explanation. It helps to know there might have been others with connections similar to mine and Kurama's. Gran Torino nodded, rising from the bench with a slight groan. Tomorrow we'll continue refining your constructs. But remember, while impressive, these techniques are merely tools. A true hero knows when to use them and, more importantly, when to hold back. That night, as Izuku reflected on the day's revelations in the quiet of his temporary room, Kurama's voice rumbled through their mental connection. The Old One's story is fascinating, the fox mused. The idea that this world once hosted entities similar to tailed beasts before quirks dominated. Do you think it's possible? Izuku asked. That there were beings like you here before? Different worlds often develop parallel paths, Kurama replied thoughtfully. The fundamental energies of existence tend to manifest in similar patterns across realities. What your world called yokai or spirits might have been analogous to tailed beasts in function, if not in origin. And now they're gone, or hiding, Izuku noted, replaced by quirks in society's understanding. Perhaps not entirely gone, Kurama suggested. Energy beings don't simply cease to exist, they transform, adapt. They might still be present, just differently than before. The conversation lingered in Izuku's mind as he drifted toward sleep. The possibility that Kurama wasn't as unique in this world as they had assumed, that other partnerships between humans and ancient energies might still exist, unrecognized within the framework of quirk society. Tomorrow would bring new techniques, new mastery of the tailed beast manifestations. But it also brought new questions about the true nature of power in this world. Questions that extended beyond the familiar boundaries of heroes and villains, beyond even the understanding of quirks themselves. As his consciousness faded into dreams, Izuku sensed Kurama's continued contemplation, the ancient fox considering implications that stretched across realities and time itself. The remaining days of internship passed in a blur of intensive training. Izuku mastered not only chakra tails and arms, but also began exploring other manifestations. Enhanced sensory capabilities through fox-like ears, improved healing through concentrated chakra flow, and even the beginnings of chakra transformation that altered his physical appearance slightly during activation. By the final day, he could maintain 3 fully functional chakra arms and up to 5 tails simultaneously, each operating with independent control while consuming minimal energy. More importantly, he could transition between his regular state and these partial manifestations instantly, a crucial tactical advantage in unpredictable combat situations. Your progress has been exceptional, Gran Torino acknowledged during their final session. In 1 week, you've advanced your control significantly beyond where you started. Thanks to your guidance, Izuku replied sincerely. The concepts you introduced, especially integration and synchronized manifestation, have transformed my understanding of Kurama's chakra. The old hero nodded, his expression unusually serious. Before you leave, there's one more thing we should discuss, something relevant to your immediate future as a hero student. What's that? Izuku asked, curious about the sudden change in tone. Gran Torino gestured for him to sit. You're aware of the recent hero killings in Hosa City? The hero killer, Stain, Izuku confirmed, his expression darkening. He's attacked multiple pro-heroes over the past few months. The media coverage has been extensive. What the media hasn't reported is a pattern in his movements, Gran Torino explained, producing a small map marked with various indicators. Based on intelligence from the Hero Commission, Stain is likely still in Hosu, selecting his next target. Izuku studied the map with growing concern. You think he'll strike again soon? Almost certainly, the old hero confirmed grimly, which presents a potential problem. as our train back to UA tomorrow passes directly through Hosu during evening hours, precisely when most of his attacks have occurred. You're warning me to be cautious during the transfer, Izuku realized. Gran Torino's expression shifted to something more complex, a mixture of caution and assessment. I'm telling you to be prepared. As a registered hero in internship, you have limited authority to act if a situation develops. But Stain is no ordinary villain. He's eliminated seasoned pros with decades of experience. His quirk reportedly paralyzes victims after he tastes their blood, Izuku recalled from news reports. Highly effective against close-range fighters who can't prevent initial contact. Precisely why your ranged capabilities and sensory skills would be advantageous, Gran Torino noted. Not that I'm suggesting you seek confrontation, he added quickly. Merely that awareness is prudent. The conversation left Izuku thoughtful as they concluded their final training session. While Gran Torino hadn't explicitly suggested he might encounter Stain, the warning seemed more specific than general caution. He's setting expectations, Kurama observed within their mental connection. Preparing you for a possibility he considers likely. You think he has information he's not sharing directly? Izuku asked silently. Perhaps, the fox replied. Or perhaps his instincts, honed over decades of hero work, sensed something developing. Either way, his warning merits attention. That evening, as Izuku packed his belongings for the next day's departure, he took extra care with his hero costume and equipment. What had been a routine return journey now carried an undercurrent of potential danger, not just for himself, but for civilians who might be caught in Stain's crosshairs. If we do encounter him, Izuku thought to Kurama, what's our approach? Full transformation immediately or measured response? Measured but decisive, the fox advised. Begin with conventional techniques to assess his capabilities, but be prepared to escalate quickly if necessary. His reputation suggests he's not to be underestimated. The following morning brought their internship to its official conclusion. Gran Torino accompanied Izuku to the station, his usual gruff demeanor softened slightly by what might have been concern. Remember what we've practiced, the old hero instructed as their train approached, especially the rapid transitions and sensory enhancement. Situational awareness can be the difference between victory and tragedy. I understand, Izuku assured him. And thank you again for everything. As the train departed, carrying Izuku toward Hosu City and whatever awaited there, Gran Torino's final words echoed in his mind. A hero's path often intersects with history's darker moments. How you respond defines not just your future, but potentially society's. The journey proceeded normally for the first few hours. Izuku used the time to meditate, reinforcing the techniques he'd learned during the internship and communicating with Kurama about potential applications in different scenarios. As the train approached Hosu City, however, a distinct shift in atmosphere became apparent. Even before they reached the station, plumes of smoke were visible rising from multiple points throughout the urban landscape. Something's wrong, Izuku muttered, pressing closer to the window. Red-orange flickers of flame punctuated the darkening skyline, accompanied by distant sirens. Multiple fires, Kurama observed, too widespread to be coincidental. When the train slowed for its scheduled stop at Hosu Station, the platform was chaotic, panicked civilians rushing to board outbound trains, while emergency announcements blared instructions for evacuation. Attention all passengers, a strained voice declared over the intercom. Due to villain activity in central Hosu, this train will make only a brief stop before continuing. Please remain aboard unless this is your final destination. Izuku stood, decision already made. His UA internship identification provided limited authorization to assist in emergency situations, and whatever was happening in Hosu clearly qualified. We need to help, he told Kurama, already moving toward the exit as the train doors opened. Agreed, the fox replied, but proceed with caution. This level of coordinated destruction suggests multiple villains, possibly connected to the league that attacked USJ. Stepping onto the platform, Izuku immediately activated his sensory enhancement, a technique refined during the internship that channeled Kurama's chakra specifically to heighten perception without full transformation. The chaos crystallized into clearer patterns, multiple distinct attack sites rather than random destruction, suggesting coordinated strikes designed to overwhelm hero response capabilities. Slipping into an empty restroom, Izuku quickly changed into his hero costume, a reinforced green jumpsuit with utility pouches and armored gloves designed to withstand the force of his enhanced strikes. Unlike many hero costumes, it favored functionality over flash, with its only distinctive feature being a stylized spiral symbol on the back, a nod to the Uzumaki clan Kurama had described from his original world. Emerging onto the street, Izuku immediately noted the nearest emergency, a residential building partially collapsed and burning approximately 2 blocks north. Without hesitation, he channeled chakra to his legs and dashed toward it, arriving in seconds to find civilians trapped inside and a single overwhelmed sidekick attempting rescue operations. UA student, internship authorization, Izuku called, displaying his ID briefly. How can I assist? The relief on the young sidekick's face was palpable. Third floor, east side, family reported trapped. Building integrity failing rapidly. Nodding, Izuku formed hand seals. Shadow clone jutsu. 5 perfect duplicates appeared, immediately spreading out to cover different sections of the burning structure. Simultaneously, Izuku manifested 2 chakra arms extending from his shoulders, golden, translucent limbs that functioned as additional appendages. Water-style, water wall, he called, creating a barrier of liquid that temporarily suppressed flames near the main entrance, allowing his clones to enter safely. For the next 20 minutes, Izuku coordinated rescue operations, his clones retrieving trapped civilians while he maintained water techniques to control the fire spread until professional firefighters arrived. The chakra arms proved invaluable, enabling him to lift debris too heavy for normal human strength and reach locations inaccessible by conventional means. As the situation stabilized, Izuku released his clones and prepared to move toward the next emergency. It was then that his enhanced senses detected something unusual, a flare of familiar chakra several blocks away, accompanied by distinctive sounds of combat. That's Ida, he realized with shock, recognizing his classmate's energy signature. What's he doing in Hosu? His brother works here, Kurama reminded him. Native, the normal hero. Wasn't he one of Stain's targets? The connection formed instantly in Izuku's mind, Ida's internship choice, his uncharacteristic intensity before departure, the hero killer's known presence in Hosu. He's hunting Stain, Izuku realized with growing horror. Seeking revenge for his brother. Without hesitation, he channeled chakra to his legs and dashed toward the signature, moving with such speed that civilians saw only a green blur. The sounds of combat grew clearer as he approached, metal striking metal, pained grunts, and a cold, ideological voice that could only belong to the hero killer himself. The alley was narrow and poorly lit, but Izuku's enhanced senses pierced the gloom to reveal a nightmarish tableau. Ida pinned to the ground, apparently paralyzed. A wounded pro-hero slumped against one wall, and a tall, gaunt figure looming over them both, scarred face partially concealed by bandages, multiple blades gleaming in the dim light. False heroes pursuing glory rather than justice, Stain was saying, blade raised for what would clearly be a killing blow to Ida's prone form. Your death will purify the corrupted profession you. Wind style, gale palm, Izuku called, not bothering with stealth. The compressed burst of wind chakra struck Stain with tremendous force, sending him tumbling backward away from Ida. Before the villain could recover, Izuku was between them, chakra arms manifested and ready. Midoriya, Ida gasped, apparently able to speak despite his paralysis. You can't be here. This is my fight. My responsibility. This isn't about revenge, Ida, Izuku replied firmly, eyes never leaving Stain as the villain regained his footing. It's about saving lives, yours included. Stain studied Izuku with unsettling intensity, head tilted like a predatory bird. Another child playing hero, he rasped, blades shifting to readiness. But unlike the false Ingenium's brother, your eyes show resolve. Let's see if your conviction matches your entrance. The attack came with blinding speed, Stain launching forward with a blade aimed directly for Izuku's throat. But the training with Gran Torino had honed Izuku's reactions beyond normal human limits. He sidestepped fluidly, one chakra arm deflecting the blade, while the other delivered a powerful counterstrike. Stain twisted impossibly, evading most of the impact and slashing at the chakra construct with obvious surprise. Energy manifestation, he observed, voice betraying rare uncertainty. Not a quirk I recognize. It's not a quirk, Izuku replied, creating distance with a backward leap. His hands flashed through seals. Water style, water bullet. Multiple compressed spheres of water shot toward the hero killer, who dodged most but caught one directly to the chest. The impact staggered him momentarily. Opportunity enough for Izuku to create shadow clones that immediately moved to protect both Ida and the wounded hero. Interesting, Stain muttered, recovered and circling carefully. Multiple techniques, no apparent activation requirements beyond those hand signs. His eyes narrowed. You're the one from the sports festival, the supposedly quirkless boy with the golden transformation. Rather than responding verbally, Izuku manifested 3 chakra tails behind him, the golden constructs swaying with deceptive grace. One lashed forward without warning, forcing Stain to leap sideways, directly into the path of a waiting clone. Rasengan, the clone called, driving the spiraling sphere of chakra toward the villain. Stain's reflexes were extraordinary, twisting midair to avoid a direct hit, though the technique grazed his side, tearing through fabric and flesh. Landing in a crouch, he threw 3 knives with deadly accuracy, dispelling the clone and forcing Izuku to deflect those aimed at himself. "You fight well for a student," the hero killer acknowledged, pressing a hand to his bleeding side. "But my mission transcends individual battles. False heroes must be culled for society to heal." "And who decides which heroes are false?" Izuku challenged, maintaining his defensive position before Ida. "Your arbitrary judgment? Those who seek heroism for fame, for wealth, for personal glory, they corrupt the very concept," Stain replied with zealous conviction. "Only All Might understands the true meaning of heroism. Selfless sacrifice without expectation of reward." The ideology might have seemed almost reasonable if not for the blood staining the villain's blades. "Even if your philosophy had merit," Izuku countered, "your methods invalidate any moral high ground. True ideals don't require murder to propagate." Stain's expression darkened. Words alone change nothing in a corrupted system. Only blood awakens society to truth. With that declaration, he launched a renewed assault, multiple blades attacking simultaneously from different angles, his body moving with unnatural speed and precision. Izuku's chakra tails and arms worked in concert with his physical limbs to counter, creating a defensive perimeter that the hero killer struggled to penetrate. "Your defense is impressive," Stain acknowledged, disengaging briefly. "But how long can you maintain it? My paralysis requires only a single taste of blood." "Then I won't let you have any," Izuku replied simply, forming new hand seals. Wind style, vacuum wall. The technique created an invisible barrier of pressurized air surrounding Izuku and his protected charges, a refined version of what he'd practiced with Gran Torino. Stain's next throwing knife struck the barrier and deflected harmlessly aside. For several tense minutes, they exchanged attacks and counters. Stain's experience and natural skill balanced against Izuku's chakra-enhanced capabilities and tactical shadow clones. The alley became a battlefield of calculated movements, neither combatant able to gain decisive advantage. "We're at stalemate," Kurama observed within Izuku's mind. "His combat experience compensates for our power advantage." "Then we need to change the equation," Izuku replied mentally, already formulating his next move. Creating 3 shadow clones simultaneously, Izuku had them attack from different angles, forcing Stain to divide his attention. While the villain was occupied, Izuku himself began a more complex series of hand seals. "Wind style, pressure damage," he called, completing the technique. The advanced wind jutsu created a concentrated vortex of destructive pressure that tore through the space between them. Stain attempted to dodge, but found his movements restricted by the clone attacks. The technique struck him directly, sending him crashing violently into the alley wall with enough force to crack the concrete. For a moment, it seemed the battle might be over. But Stain rose again, bloodied but unbroken, his eyes burning with fanatical resolve. "Impressive power," he wheezed, spitting blood. "But conviction outweighs technique." With shocking speed despite his injuries, the hero killer hurled a blade directly at the paralyzed pro-hero, a calculated move forcing Izuku to choose between offensive follow-up and defensive protection. There was no real choice to make. One chakra arm extended instantly, intercepting the blade meters from the vulnerable hero. In that split second of divided attention, Stain closed the distance to Izuku himself, a smaller blade aimed for exposed flesh. "Too slow," the villain hissed triumphantly. "No," Izuku replied calmly. "You are." In the instant before contact, golden chakra erupted around Izuku's form, not the full Kurama chakra mode, but a partial manifestation concentrated around the threatened area. The blade that should have pierced skin scraped harmlessly against the golden energy. Stain's eyes widened in genuine surprise. The opening Izuku needed. A chakra-enhanced palm strike delivered directly to the villain's solar plexus sent him flying backward once more, this time landing in a crumpled heap several meters away. "Stay down," Izuku advised, the golden chakra now flowing more visibly around his form. "The next strike won't be so measured." For a tense moment, it seemed Stain might attempt to continue, his hand twitching toward another concealed blade. But rational assessment apparently overrode fanatical drive. He remained down, breathing heavily. "You fight for genuine purpose," the hero killer acknowledged between labored breaths. "Not like the others, playing at heroism for status." "I fight to protect," Izuku replied simply, The philosophy can wait for safer circumstances. Creating additional shadow clones to secure Stain, Izuku turned his attention to the injured pro-hero and Ida. The paralysis effect seemed temporary but significant. Neither could move beyond limited facial expressions. "My classmate from UA," Ida managed, his voice tight with emotion. I was foolish, consumed by vengeance. I abandoned the hero path and nearly died for it." "We all make mistakes, Ida," Izuku replied gently, checking the pro-hero's wounds and finding them serious but not immediately life-threatening. "What matters is learning from them." As if responding to the moment of relative calm, a massive crash suddenly echoed from several blocks away, followed by an inhuman roar that sent chills down Izuku's spine. "What was that?" one of his clones asked, voicing the shared concern. "Something artificial," Kurama growled within Izuku's mind. "Similar to the creature at USJ, but different. Multiple signatures, actually." The realization struck with chilling clarity. "The League of Villains," Izuku muttered. "This wasn't just Stain, it's a coordinated attack." "Go," Ida urged, apparently understanding the situation. "Pro-heroes will find us soon. Those creatures, Nomu, they called them at USJ. They'll kill civilians." Izuku hesitated, torn between staying with his injured friend and responding to the greater threat. Before he could decide, Stain spoke again, his voice calmer but no less intense. "The boy is right," the hero killer stated, making no attempt to free himself from the clone's restraint. "Those abominations are the true corruption, manufactured villains without purpose or conviction. Mere tools for chaos." The unexpected alliance of perspective was surreal, but the logic was sound. After ensuring his clones had Stain securely restrained and sending one to guide emergency responders to their location, Izuku prepared to confront the new threat. "I'll return as soon as possible," he promised Ida. "Stay safe." Channeling chakra to his legs, Izuku dashed toward the source of the disturbance, arriving minutes later to find a scene of chaos. 3 monstrous Nomu were rampaging through a commercial district, their misshapen bodies and exposed brains marking them as siblings to the creature from USJ. Pro-heroes were engaged but struggling against the creature's multiple quirks and unnatural resilience. Assessing the situation quickly, Izuku focused on the immediate priority, civilian evacuation from damaged buildings. Creating multiple shadow clones, he coordinated rescue operations while observing the Nomu to identify weaknesses. "The black one is fastest, the winged one has range, and the muscular one has sheer strength," he analyzed aloud. "Each specialized for different combat roles." "Coordinated design," Kurama agreed, "but artificial and unbalanced. Not like natural evolution of abilities." As the evacuation progressed, Izuku noticed a pro-hero Endeavor, engaging the largest Nomu with impressive firepower but limited effect. The creature's regeneration quirk neutralized much of the flame damage. "It needs to be overwhelmed instantly," Izuku realized. "Damage faster than it can regenerate." Decision made, he channeled Kurama's chakra more deeply, golden energy flowing around his form in a controlled manifestation. Not the full transformation yet, but significantly more power than he'd used against Stain. Wind-style vacuum sequence, he called, forming complex hand seals. The advanced technique, one of Gran Torino's teachings, created multiple concentrated blades of wind that struck the regenerating Nomu in rapid succession, each cutting deeper than the last. The creature roared in pain but continued advancing toward civilians despite its injuries. Endeavor noticed Izuku's intervention, his flaming beard intensifying with what might have been irritation at needing assistance. "UA student," he called gruffly. "Authorization, internship emergency protocol." Izuku replied quickly, displaying his ID while continuing to maintain his wind technique. "Permission to coordinate?" The flame hero seemed about to object but assessed the situation with professional pragmatism. "The regeneration negates sustained damage," he acknowledged. "We need concentrated force." "Combined attack," Izuku suggested. "Your flames following my wind pathway. Temperature amplification to overcome healing factor." Endeavor's eyes narrowed slightly, but he nodded. "On your mark." Focusing his chakra, Izuku formed the most complex wind technique he'd yet attempted. Wind style, vacuum vortex. The jutsu created a spiraling tunnel of concentrated air leading directly to the Nomu, a perfect channel for amplified flames. Understanding immediately, Endeavor launched his most powerful attack directly into the vortex. The result was spectacular and devastating. Flames accelerated and intensified by the wind tunnel struck the Nomu with such concentrated force that regeneration couldn't keep pace. The creature's inhuman scream cut off abruptly as critical systems failed simultaneously. Effective, Endeavor acknowledged tersely, already turning toward the remaining threats. Can you replicate for the others? Not immediately, Izuku admitted, feeling the chakra drain from the advanced technique. But I have alternatives. Before they could coordinate further, a commotion from the direction Izuku had come drew their attention. Someone was moving toward them with unnatural speed, dragging what appeared to be a body. Another villain? Endeavor growled, flames intensifying around his form. But Izuku's enhanced senses identified the approaching figure with shock. It's Stain. But how? My clones should have. The hero killer appeared at the edge of the battle zone, dragging an unconscious winged Nomu. Blood covered his bandages, indicating he'd somehow broken free and dispatched Izuku's clones. Despite his injuries, his movements remained fluid and lethal. Artificial abominations, Stain spat, tossing the Nomu aside with surprising strength. Corruption given flesh without purpose or ideology. His gaze fixed on the remaining active Nomu, which had noticed his arrival and turned toward this new threat. What followed was disturbing even to seasoned pros. Stain moving with inhuman speed, blades flashing in complex patterns that systematically dismembered the creature despite its multiple quirks. This is the state of villains today, the hero killer proclaimed as the Nomu fell. Manufactured pawns rather than individuals of conviction. His bloodshot eyes swept across the gathered heroes and now arriving police forces. Society has lost its way. Heroes and villains alike degraded to commercial enterprises and scientific experiments. The fanatical speech might have continued, but exhaustion and accumulated injuries finally overcame even Stain's remarkable endurance. He swayed, then collapsed to one knee, blades still raised defensively. Police and heroes closed in cautiously, while Izuku maintained distance, aware that his previous encounter with the hero killer would require explanation to authorities. As Stain was finally restrained properly and medical attention secured for all injured parties, the chaotic night in Hosu gradually transitioned to controlled aftermath. Hours later, seated in a hospital waiting room while Ida received treatment, Izuku reflected on the night's events with Kurama. Stain's ideology is warped, he thought to the fox. But there's a twisted core of principle beneath the bloodshed. He genuinely believes he's purifying hero society. Conviction without compassion is merely fanaticism, Kurama replied philosophically. But his observations about the Nomu were accurate. They represent a different kind of corruption. Manufactured weapons rather than independent actors. Before Izuku could respond, a police detective approached, the same trench-coated man who had interviewed Class 1A after the USJ incident. Midoriya Izuku, Detective Tsukachi greeted him. Seems you have a talent for being at the center of major incidents. Not by choice, Detective Izuku replied respectfully, rising to meet him. I've reviewed the preliminary reports, Tsukachi continued, consulting his notepad. Your initial engagement with Stain while protecting classmate Tenya Ida and pro-hero native, followed by assistance against Nomu creatures alongside Endeavor. He looked up, expression carefully neutral. Quite a busy evening for an internship student. I acted within emergency protocols, Izuku noted, maintaining calm despite the implied scrutiny. Life-threatening situations with no senior heroes immediately available. So the reports indicate, the detective acknowledged. And your abilities. Multiple witnesses describe energy constructs, elemental techniques, and duplication capabilities. Care to elaborate? Chakra manipulation, Izuku explained simply. As I've previously disclosed to UA faculty and demonstrated during the sports festival. My official registration lists it as energy projection and manifestation for classification purposes. Tsukachi studied him for a long moment, as if weighing further questions against professional boundaries. Finally, he nodded slightly. Your actions likely saved lives tonight, regardless of classification technicalities. Official statement will be required, but that can wait until morning. As the detective departed, Izuku released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The night's events would have consequences, media attention, official scrutiny, and undoubtedly increased interest in his unique abilities. We were noticed, Kurama observed unnecessarily, more than during the sports festival. Combat application of chakra techniques attracts different attention than tournament displays. Unavoidable, Izuku replied mentally, Protecting lives takes priority over maintaining low profiles. When Ida was finally released from treatment, his arm heavily bandaged but his paralysis fully dissipated, the two friends shared a moment of quiet reflection in the hospital corridor. "I owe you my life," Ida began, bowing deeply despite his injuries, "and an apology for my reckless pursuit of vengeance. I abandoned the hero principles I claimed to value." "We all have moments of emotional override," Izuku replied gently. "What matters is recognizing them and growing beyond." Ida straightened, his expression serious. "Your abilities tonight, they were beyond what you showed even at the sports festival. The golden energy, those additional limbs, was that Kurama's influence? Partial manifestation," Izuku confirmed quietly. "Techniques I refined during internship with Gran Torino. More controlled than the full transformation, but still drawing on Kurama's chakra. It was." Ida seemed to search for appropriate words. "Remarkable, and somewhat terrifying, to be honest. The power you commanded against Stain, a villain who's defeated multiple pros, it didn't even seem to tax you significantly." Izuku considered his response carefully. "The power itself isn't what matters, Ida. It's the purpose behind its application. Kurama's chakra responds to intention as much as technique." The class representative nodded thoughtfully. "A lesson I needed to remember myself." He extended his uninjured hand. "Thank you, Midoriya. Not just for the rescue, but for the reminder of what heroism truly means." As they shook hands, Izuku sensed they had crossed some threshold in their friendship, moving beyond classmates to something forged in shared danger and mutual respect. The train ride back to UA the following day was subdued, both students lost in reflection about the Hosu incident and its implications. Media reports were already featuring blurry footage of Izuku's chakra techniques against both Stain and the Nomu, amateur video from civilians that raised as many questions as it answered. "Your profile has been elevated," Kurama noted as Izuku scrolled through news coverage on his phone. "The Quirkless wonder narrative has evolved to speculation about your mysterious energy quirk and its limitations." "Let them speculate," Izuku replied, echoing the Fox's earlier sentiment from the sports festival. "What matters is that lives were saved and Stain's spree ended." As UA's familiar silhouette appeared on the horizon, Izuku felt a curious sense of completion. The internship had transformed his capabilities, refined his control of Kurama's chakra, and tested his resolve in genuine combat rather than controlled exercises. He was returning not just with new techniques, but with deeper understanding of both his power and its purpose in this world of heroes and villains. The path ahead would undoubtedly bring new challenges, but after Hosu, he faced them with renewed confidence in the partnership that defined his unique place in hero society. The Jinchuriki and the NineTails, evolving together in a world that was only beginning to comprehend what their bond truly represented. The day after returning from internships, Class 1A's homeroom session took an unexpected turn. Instead of Aizawa's usual monotone announcements, the students found themselves faced with their teacher, Principal Nizu, and Detective Tsukachi standing at the front of the classroom. "Before we discuss upcoming exams," Aizawa began, his bandages finally removed, but his expression as inscrutable as ever, "we need to address recent events in Hosu City involving several of your classmates." Murmurs immediately rippled through the room as students turned toward Izuku, Ida, and Todoroki, the three who had been present during the incident. "For those who haven't seen news coverage," Tsukachi continued, stepping forward, "a coordinated villain attack occurred in Hosu 3 nights ago, involving both artificial Nomu creatures similar to what Class 1A encountered at USJ, and the apprehension of the hero killer, Stain." Images appeared on the classroom's main screen: devastation in Hosu, the monstrous Nomu, and a restrained Stain being loaded into a police transport. "What hasn't been widely reported," the detective continued, "is the significant role UA students played in neutralizing these threats and preventing civilian casualties." More images appeared: blurry footage of Izuku's chakra techniques against a Nomu, Todoroki's ice barriers protecting evacuating civilians, and a distant shot of what appeared to be golden energy illuminating an alleyway. "While we don't normally publicize student involvement in such incidents," Principal Nizu interjected, his perpetual smile somehow more serious than usual, "circumstances necessitate a frank discussion. The media narrative is developing with or without official input, and certain individuals' abilities have attracted particular attention." All eyes turned to Izuku, who maintained a calm expression despite the scrutiny. "Midoriya," Aizawa addressed him directly, "your confrontation with Stain and subsequent assistance against Nomu creatures has generated significant public interest, particularly regarding your chakra techniques. which were captured on civilian video. Izuku nodded, acknowledging the statement without defensive response. While you operated within emergency protocols, the teacher continued, the display of advanced capabilities beyond what was shown at the sports festival has raised questions about progressive disclosure of your abilities. Progressive disclosure? Kaminari echoed, confusion evident. The controlled revelation of capabilities, Tsukachi explained. Heroes with certain power types, particularly those with significant destructive potential or unusual manifestations, typically coordinate with authorities regarding public awareness of their full capabilities. Understanding dawned across the classroom. This wasn't a reprimand, but a procedural adjustment to Izuku's unique situation. In light of recent events, Principal Nizu continued, we've established a modified disclosure framework for Midoriya's abilities, one that balances authentic development with appropriate transparency. The principal's beady eyes fixed on Izuku. Put simply, you're no longer required to minimize your chakra techniques during authorized hero activities. The Quirkless student with energy manipulation narrative has evolved beyond viability. The implications weren't lost on Izuku or his classmates. What had been an extraordinary exception was being officially normalized within the hero system. Thank you for clarifying, Izuku responded politely. I've been concerned about operational constraints during genuine emergencies. A reasonable concern, Tsukachi acknowledged. Which brings us to the second purpose of this discussion. He turned to address the entire class. Recent events have demonstrated that villain activity is escalating in both organization and ambition. The training you receive at UA must evolve accordingly. Meaning what, exactly? Bakugo demanded, characteristic impatience breaking the momentary silence. Meaning, Aizawa answered dryly, that your upcoming final exams will reflect real-world complexity rather than controlled academic challenges. Consider the practical portion a genuine test of your emergency readiness. With that ominous statement, the official portion of the discussion concluded. As Tsukachi and Nizu departed, leaving Aizawa to transition to regular class business, the students exchanged meaningful glances, particularly those who had witnessed Hosu firsthand. When the lunch break finally arrived, Izuku found himself surrounded by classmates bursting with questions. Dude, those golden arms in the video, Kirishima exclaimed, excitement overriding decorum. Were those actual physical manifestations? How much weight can they lift? The news showed you creating multiple copies of yourself, Yayarosa added, her analytical mind clearly intrigued. Are they independent entities or projections of your consciousness? Is it true you fought Stain one-on-one? Ishido pressed, practically bouncing in place. The hero killer who's defeated like a dozen pros? Before Izuku could address the barrage, Uraraka and Ida intervened, creating space around his desk. Everyone, please. Ida chopped his hand officially. Midoriya has just returned from a traumatic incident. Professional courtesy demands restraint. Besides, Uraraka added with surprising firmness, if you saw the news, you know he helped save lives. That's what matters, not power rankings or technique details. Their defense created a momentary pause, which Izuku used to gather his thoughts. After the official disclosure adjustment, how much should he reveal to classmates? How much did they need to know? What you saw in Hosu, he began carefully, were techniques I've been developing for years, refined during my internship with Gran Torino. The golden energy constructs are chakra manifestations, extensions that function as additional limbs. The duplicates are shadow clones, independent copies that share my abilities temporarily. And the elemental attacks? Todoroki asked quietly, his dual-colored eyes showing genuine interest. The wind and water techniques you used against the Nomu. Nature transformation, Izuku explained, reshaping chakra to manifest elemental properties. I have affinity for wind primarily, with secondary capabilities in water and fire. The technical explanation seemed to satisfy the immediate curiosity, though Izuku noted several classmates, particularly Bakugo, watching with expressions that suggested deeper questions remained. As the group gradually dispersed, Bakugo approached Izuku's desk directly, his usual aggressive posture somehow more contained than normal. Deku, he began, voice uncharacteristically measured. That golden energy, it's the same as what you used at USJ, isn't it? Just controlled differently. It wasn't really a question. Izuku met his childhood friend's intense gaze steadily. Yes, different application, same source. And that source is what makes you different from other Quirkless extras. Bakugo pressed, careful to keep his voice from carrying to remaining classmates. It's why you were never really Quirkless at all. The statement hung between them, Not quite accusation, not quite question, but demanding response nonetheless. I was quirkless by every medical definition, Izuku replied evenly. What I have, it's not a quirk, Kaken. It's something else entirely. Something that lets you create golden arms, duplicate yourself, and go toe-to-toe with the hero killer. Bakugo summarized flatly. Something you've had all along but kept hidden. There was old hurt there, Izuku realized, not just rivalry or pride, but a sense of betrayal dating back to their childhood. The revelation that the useless Deku had possessed extraordinary potential all along challenged Bakugo's entire framework for their relationship. I didn't understand what I had until I was older, Izuku explained, keeping his tone neutral despite the charged conversation. Learning to use chakra took years of practice. It wasn't an instant power-up. Bakugo studied him for a long moment, conflict evident in his expression. Finally, he just nodded once, a sharp, decisive movement. Final exams are coming. Whatever this power of yours is, don't hold back. I want to see exactly what I'm up against. As the explosive student walked away, Izuku felt Kurama stir within their shared consciousness. The explosive one has pride, but also perception, the fox observed. He senses there's more to our partnership than you've revealed. He's always been perceptive, Izuku agreed mentally, especially about things that challenge him directly. You'll need to tell him eventually, Kurama noted. Perhaps not everything, but enough to address the questions he's not yet articulating. Before Izuku could consider this further, Uraraka approached, concern evident in her expression. You okay? Bakugo seemed intense. Just processing, Izuku assured her with a small smile. Old dynamics adjusting to new realities. She nodded, understanding. The disclosure change from the principal, that's big, isn't it? You don't have to hide your abilities anymore. Not hide exactly, Izuku clarified, but yes, it's significant. Official acknowledgement that chakra techniques are part of hero operations, not just unusual exceptions. Does that mean? Uraraka hesitated, glancing around before continuing more quietly. Does that mean you might tell more people about Kurama? The question carried weight beyond its simple phrasing. Currently, only Uraraka, Ida, and the UA faculty knew about the NineTails, the true source of Izuku's more extraordinary abilities. Eventually, Izuku replied thoughtfully, but carefully and selectively. The world isn't ready for the full truth yet. Uraraka nodded, accepting this measured approach. Well, whatever you decide, you know Ida and I have your back. She grinned suddenly. Though I have to admit, those golden arms were pretty awesome. Can you teach me any chakra stuff? Or is it a you and Kurama only thing? The question was asked lightly, but Izuku considered it seriously. Basic chakra manipulation might be possible for others to learn, though probably not to the same extent. Without a tailed beast partner, the energy reserves would be limited. So you're saying there's a chance? She teased, mimicking a movie quote. Maybe after exams. Izuku laughed, grateful for the momentary lightness. Speaking of which, did you hear Aizawa's warning about the practical portion? Sounds like they're planning something unusually challenging. Yeah, that was ominous even for him, Uraraka agreed. Ida thinks they might pit us against professional heroes instead of robots this time. That would be logical, Izuku mused, tactical mind already analyzing possibilities. Testing not just power but judgment against opponents with experience and refined techniques. The conversation shifted to exam preparation, but Izuku's thoughts periodically returned to the earlier official announcement. The disclosure framework adjustment represented a significant evolution in his hero journey. Acknowledgement that hiding his capabilities was no longer practical or necessary. It also raised implications for his future development. If basic chakra techniques were now officially recognized, how would authorities respond to more advanced manifestations? The full Kurama chakra mode, or even the tailed beast transformation that Kurama had described from his original world? One step at a time, Kit, the fox advised, sensing his thoughts. Society adapts gradually to paradigm shifts. What seems extraordinary today will become merely unusual tomorrow, and eventually, simply another accepted power variant. Like quirks themselves, Izuku realized. Once, they must have seemed impossible violations of natural law. Now they're the foundation of society. Precisely. Your path may be unique in this world, but the pattern of acceptance follows universal principles. Kurama's mental tone carried rare optimism. The disclosure adjustment is progress, recognition that your power, while different, has legitimate place in hero operations. As afternoon classes resumed, Izuku found himself approaching the upcoming exams with renewed focus. The constraints of concealment had been officially relaxed, creating opportunity to demonstrate more of his true capabilities in legitimate academic context. Whatever challenges the practical exams presented, he would face them with Kurama's partnership and his own developing techniques, no longer hidden but officially acknowledged as part of UA's diverse power spectrum. The Jinchuriki path was becoming visible to the world, one careful step at a time. The 2 weeks leading to final exams passed in a blur of intensive preparation. Written tests would cover the academic curriculum, while the practical portion remained mysterious beyond Aizawa's ominous warning about real-world complexity. For Izuku, the study period represented more than academic review. It was opportunity to refine techniques developed during internship without the pressure of actual combat. Each evening after classroom preparation, he would retreat to UA's training facilities or secluded forest areas to practice chakra manifestations, elemental combinations, and synchronized clone tactics. For days before exams began, during one such evening session deep in the forest surrounding UA's campus, Izuku was perfecting a new application of wind chakra when he sensed an approaching presence. "Someone's coming," Kurama noted unnecessarily. Familiar signature. Izuku released the wind technique he'd been molding, turning toward the forest path. "Kaken." Bakugo emerged from the trees, hands casually tucked in his pockets, but expression intensely focused. "Figured you'd be out here," he stated without preamble. "You always disappear after study sessions." "Just practicing," Izuku replied neutrally, unsure of Bakugo's purpose. Their interactions since Hosu had been minimal, civil but distant. "Practicing what, exactly?" Bakugo challenged, stepping into the small clearing. "Those golden arms? The duplication thing? Or something new you're hiding for the practical exam?" The accusatory tone was familiar, but something about Bakugo's demeanor was different, more controlled, more deliberate than his usual explosive confrontations. "Wind chakra techniques, primarily," Izuku answered honestly. "My natural affinity, but still needing refinement." "Show me," Bakugo demanded. The request was unexpected, but Izuku complied without argument. Forming the necessary hand seals, he focused his chakra. Wind style, vacuum sphere. Multiple small bullets of compressed air shot from his mouth, striking a distant tree with enough force to bore clean holes through the trunk. Bakugo observed with critical attention, his expert combat mind clearly analyzing range, impact, and application potential. "Piercing damage, mid-range, multiple targets possible," he assessed aloud. "Useful against opponents who rely on direct approaches. Like yourself," Izuku suggested with mild humor. "I'd blast them aside before impact," Bakugo replied automatically, then paused as if realizing he'd engaged with the tactical discussion earnestly. His expression shifted, becoming more direct. "Why are you showing me this? Aren't you concerned about revealing your techniques before exams?" Izuku considered the question thoughtfully. "We're classmates, Kaken. Eventually teammates in professional contexts. Knowing each other's capabilities improves coordination, not just competition." "Teammates," Bakugo repeated, testing the concept with obvious ambivalence. After a moment, he seemed to reach some internal decision. "The practical exam. Uraraka thinks they'll pit us against pro-heroes." "That's my assessment as well," Izuku agreed. "Testing judgment and tactical application against experienced opponents, not just raw power against robots." "If that's true," Bakugo continued, "they'll likely pair students based on complementary abilities." His red eyes fixed on Izuku with unusual intensity. "Which means you and I might be partnered." The logic was sound, if uncomfortable for both of them. Their quirks, or in Izuku's case, chakra techniques, represented opposite approaches to combat. Bakugo's explosive power created distance and overwhelming force. Izuku's versatile techniques offered precision and adaptability. "It would make pedagogical sense," Izuku acknowledged, testing whether former rivals can function effectively as a unit. Bakugo paced the clearing, uncharacteristic thoughtfulness in his movements. "If that happens," he finally stated, "I need to know what you're actually capable of. Not the flashy stuff from the sports festival or Hosu, the real limits. Your actual maximum output." The request hung in the air between them, not quite demand, not quite plea, but carrying weight of their complex history. "You want to see Kurama chakra mode," Izuku realized aloud. "The full transformation." Bakugo's head snapped up, surprise briefly replacing his calculated expression. "Kurama?" What the hell is that? The slip was unintentional. Izuku had grown so accustomed to discussing Kurama with those who knew that the name emerged naturally. Now he faced a choice: continue the partial disclosure that had defined their relationship for years, or offer Bakugo the truth he'd shared with Uraraka and Ida. "It's your call, Kit," Kurama commented within their mindscape. "But if anyone deserves to understand what they're truly facing, it's him. Your rivalry has defined much of his self-concept." Decision made, Izuku gestured toward a fallen log at the clearing's edge. "You might want to sit down, Kaken. This explanation isn't simple." For once, Bakugo complied without argument, though his expression remained guarded. "What I'm about to tell you," Izuku began carefully, "is known only to UA faculty and 2 of our classmates. It's not classified exactly, but it's complicated." "Just get on with it," Bakugo replied, though without his usual heat. Taking a deep breath, Izuku launched into the explanation, the same one he'd shared with Uraraka and Ida. He described Kurama's nature as a tailed beast, their connection since early childhood, and the gradual development of chakra techniques under the fox's guidance. As the explanation continued, Bakugo's expression cycled through disbelief, anger, consideration, and finally, a sort of grudging acceptance. "So the fox, Kurama, he's like a sentient power source living inside you?" he summarized when Izuku finished. "Not a quirk, but some kind of energy being from another reality?" "That's the simplified version, yes," Izuku confirmed. "His chakra enhances my natural abilities and enables techniques beyond normal human capacity." "And he's conscious? Aware of this conversation right now?" "Yes. Kurama perceives everything I do, though he typically remains silent unless directly addressed." Bakugo processed this, explosions crackling briefly around his palms, a nervous habit rather than aggression. "Can I talk to him directly?" The request was unexpected, revealing curiosity beneath Bakugo's confrontational exterior. Izuku glanced inward, seeking Kurama's opinion. "Interesting," the fox commented. "The explosive one wants to address me personally. I'm inclined to allow it. His reaction may prove revealing." With Kurama's agreement, Izuku nodded to Bakugo. "He's willing. Give me a moment to establish the connection." Closing his eyes, Izuku entered the light meditative state that facilitated Kurama's temporary control. When his eyes opened again, they had transformed to vertical slits, his expression shifting to something more ancient and evaluative. "So you're the explosive rival?" Kurama's deep voice emerged from Izuku's mouth, startling Bakugo visibly. "The one so determined to prove superiority." Bakugo's shock quickly transformed to composed attention, a more mature response than Izuku might have expected years earlier. "And you're the source of Deku's power. The reason he was never really quirkless." "A simplification, but essentially accurate," Kurama acknowledged. "Though source suggests mere power transfer, our partnership is more complex. Mutual growth rather than unidirectional enhancement." "Partnership," Bakugo repeated, testing the concept. "So you're not controlling him? He makes his own decisions about using your power." "Perceptive question," Kurama noted with approval. "Yes, all actions are Izuku's choice. I provide chakra and occasionally advice, but exercise no direct control beyond these brief conversations." Bakugo's eyes narrowed slightly. "And your goal? What do you get from this arrangement?" The directness seemed to amuse Kurama. "Initially, curiosity about a world unlike my own and the development of a unique human. Now, the fox's borrowed expression grew more contemplative. Purpose, identity beyond mere existence. Through Izuku's growth, I experienced this world's complexities from perspective I'd never access alone." "So you're using him as, what, an experiment? A way to study our world?" "No more than he uses me for power," Kurama countered smoothly. "Mutual benefit defines true partnership, explosive one. A concept you might consider in your own development." The subtle challenge wasn't lost on Bakugo, whose expression tightened briefly before settling into thoughtful consideration. "The golden transformation at USJ and in Hosu, that was your power directly, wasn't it? Not just Deku's techniques." "Kurama chakra mode," the fox confirmed. "Direct manifestation of my energy through Izuku's chakra network. Significantly more powerful than his standard techniques, but with corresponding limitations on duration and strain." "How powerful are we talking?" Bakugo pressed, tactical mind clearly assessing potential. Kurama's borrowed face formed a slight smirk. "In my world, fully realized Jinchuriki, humans containing tailed beasts, could level mountains and reshape landscapes. Izuku hasn't reached such extremes, but given time, The implication hung clearly in the air. Bakugo absorbed this, his expression unreadable for several moments. Finally, he asked one more question. Does he still want to be a hero because of All Might? Or is that your influence too? The question revealed unexpected insight, Bakugo trying to determine how much of Izuku's core motivation remained from the friend he'd known before chakra techniques manifested. His admiration for All Might is entirely his own, Kurama replied, genuine respect in his tone. As is his fundamental desire to protect others. My influence has shaped his methods and capabilities, but not his essential character. The fox's vertical eyes studied Bakugo intently. He remains the same determined child who once defended you from my suggestion that you weren't worth his concern. This final revelation seemed to impact Bakugo more than any previous statement. Something flickered across his features. Surprise, perhaps, or a complex emotion not easily categorized. I've satisfied your curiosity, Kurama concluded. Now Izuku will return. The vertical slits faded, and Izuku blinked, resuming control. For several moments, neither student spoke, the weight of revelation hanging between them. So, Bakugo finally broke the silence. That's what you've been hiding all these years. A giant talking fox with mountain-destroying power. Despite the tension, Izuku couldn't help a small smile at the blunt summarization. That's one way to put it. And what he said about you defending me to him, was that true? The question carried vulnerability Bakugo rarely displayed. Izuku nodded. When we were younger, Kurama didn't understand why I maintained our friendship despite how you treated me. He suggested I distance myself, focus on those who valued me more obviously. He shrugged slightly. I told him he didn't understand our history, that beneath the rivalry, there was still something worth preserving. Bakugo looked away, clearly uncomfortable with the emotional territory. After a moment, he stood abruptly. Show me. Show you? The transformation. Kurama chakra mode, or whatever you call it. I want to see what I'm really up against. The request was direct, uncomplicated by the emotional complexity of their previous discussion. In many ways, this was the Bakugo that Izuku understood best, the competitor seeking clear assessment of an opponent's capabilities. All right, Izuku agreed, moving to the clearing center. Stand back a bit. The initial energy release can be intense. As Bakugo retreated to a safer distance, Izuku centered himself, connecting deeply with Kurama's energy. With their recent integration training, the transformation had become more fluid, more natural, less a dramatic power-up than an expansion of his existing capabilities. Golden chakra erupted around his form, flowing outward to create the now familiar cloak that outlined Kurama's fox-like features. The ground beneath his feet cracked slightly from the pressure as the transformation stabilized, golden tails swaying behind him and ears formed of pure energy extending above his head. Bakugo's eyes widened despite his attempt at composed assessment. The transformation's raw power was evident even without demonstration. The air itself seemed to vibrate with contained energy, small stones levitating briefly around Izuku's feet from the chakra pressure. This is Kurama chakra mode, Izuku explained, his voice carrying that resonant quality it gained in this form. Full integration of Kurama's chakra with my own network, enhancing all capabilities exponentially. To demonstrate, he created a Rasengan in his palm, significantly larger than his standard version and glowing with intense golden light. With a casual flick, he sent it toward a boulder at the clearing's edge. The spiraling sphere didn't merely crack the massive stone. It pulverized it completely, fragments scattering in all directions before Izuku's chakra tails automatically gathered and contained the debris. Control and power, he explained, allowing the golden chakra arms to manifest and demonstrate independent movement. Everything is amplified: strength, speed, sensory perception, technique, potency. Bakugo approached cautiously, studying the transformation with critical attention. Duration? Limitations. Currently about 15 minutes of sustained manifestation, Izuku replied. Less if using high-output techniques continuously. The limitation is my physical endurance. Channeling this much chakra creates significant strain. For several moments, Bakugo simply observed, circling Izuku's transformed state with analytical focus. Finally, he stopped, meeting Izuku's glowing eyes directly. Why tell me this now? He asked bluntly. You've kept it secret for years. Why reveal everything just before exams? Izuku considered the question seriously. Because you asked directly. Because we might be partnered for practical exams. Because... He paused, searching for the right words. Because regardless of our past, you deserve to know what you're truly competing against. The honesty seemed to satisfy something in Bakugo. He nodded once, decision apparently made. If we are partnered, he stated firmly, we win. Whatever they throw at us, whatever pro-heroes or challenges, we show them exactly what we can do together. The declaration was unexpected, not a grudging acceptance of potential partnership, but a determined commitment to success through cooperation. It represented evolution in their relationship that Izuku hadn't anticipated. Together, he agreed, releasing the transformation and returning to his normal state. Though we still don't know if they'll actually pair us. They will, Bakugo stated with characteristic certainty. It's too obvious a test to pass up. The rival with explosive power and the kid with the chakra fox, seeing if we can function as a unit. His tactical assessment aligned with Izuku's own thoughts, suggesting that despite their different approaches, their analytical processes remained surprisingly similar. As they walked back toward campus in the gathering twilight, Bakugo asked one final question, casually, as if it weren't significant. The fox, Kurama, is he really ancient? From another world completely? According to him, yes, Izuku confirmed. He existed for centuries in his original reality before somehow connecting with me in this one. Bakugo processed this quietly before responding. Must be weird, having something that old watching everything you do, commenting on your life. The observation was surprisingly insightful acknowledgement of the unique aspects of Izuku's experience beyond just power acquisition. It was strange at first, Izuku admitted, but over time it became normal. Like having a mentor who's always available, always watching. His perspective is different from humans, which helps with certain challenges. And annoys you with others, I bet, Bakugo suggested with unexpected perceptiveness. Izuku couldn't help a small laugh. Sometimes, he has strong opinions about human social customs he finds illogical. This glimpse of their partnership's mundane aspects seemed to humanize the concept for Bakugo. His expression relaxed slightly, the information overload gradually settling into acceptance. Don't think this changes anything, he stated as they reached the dormitory entrance, reverting to more familiar gruffness. I'm still going to be the #1 hero. Fox or no fox. I wouldn't expect anything else, Kaken, Izuku replied with a small smile. As they parted ways, Izuku felt something shift in their long-standing dynamic, not resolution of all past conflicts, but evolution towards something more mature, more balanced than their childhood rivalry had allowed. The explosive one handled the revelation better than expected, Kurama commented as Izuku prepared for sleep that night. His question about your motivations was particularly interesting. Concerned that I might have altered your fundamental character. He's always been perceptive about things that matter to him, Izuku replied, reflecting on the interaction. Beneath the aggression, he notices details others miss. And his proposal of effective partnership for the exams? Genuine, I think. Kaken hates losing more than he hates cooperating with me. Izuku smiled slightly. Besides, he's practical when it matters. If we are paired against pro-heroes, neither of us can afford to let rivalry undermine our performance. As sleep approached, Izuku's thoughts drifted to the upcoming exams with renewed perspective. The disclosure to Bakugo represented another step in the gradual revelation of his true capabilities, another person who understood the source of his power and the nature of his partnership with Kurama. Whether they would indeed be paired for the practical exam remained uncertain, but the groundwork had been laid for effective collaboration if necessary. After years of rivalry and misunderstanding, the prospect of genuine teamwork with Bakugo represented unexpected progress. Evolution in their relationship that mirrored the growth in Izuku's own capabilities. Tomorrow would bring continued preparation. The day after, written examinations. And finally, the practical test that would demonstrate whether former rivals could truly function as partners when facing professional opposition. The Jinchuriki path continued to unfold in unexpected ways. The morning of practical examinations arrived with palpable tension throughout Class 1A. Written tests had concluded the previous day, leaving only the mysterious practical portion that Aizawa had warned would reflect real-world complexity. Students gathered in their hero costumes at the central plaza, speculation running rampant about what challenges awaited. Izuku wore his updated outfit, still the reinforced green jumpsuit, but now featuring specialized conduct material designed to channel chakra more efficiently, particularly during transformations. Attention, Aizawa called, silencing the nervous chatter. Today's practical examination will test not just your individual capabilities, but your ability to function effectively in partnership against superior opposition. Principal Nizu stepped forward, his perpetual smile somehow more mischievous than usual. As future heroes, you must be prepared to face villains who surpass you in experience, technique refinement, and combat adaptability. Therefore, Today's examination pairs you against UA's own faculty, professional heroes with years of field experience. Murmurs immediately erupted among the students, confirming the speculation that had circulated since Aizawa's warning. Each team will face a specific teacher, Nizu continued, unperturbed by the reaction. Your objective is simple. Either capture your opponent using these special restraints. He held up a pair of distinctively marked handcuffs, or reach the designated escape gate within the time limit. Either outcome constitutes a pass. The pairings, Aizawa interjected, have been carefully determined based on complementary abilities, developmental needs, and specific challenges each team should address. As the teacher began announcing partnerships and their assigned opponents, Izuku felt a curious mixture of anticipation and confirmation when his name was called. Midoriya and Bakugo versus All Might. The assignment silenced the plaza momentarily. All Might, the symbol of peace, the world's greatest hero, would be their opponent. Even accounting for training limitations, the matchup seemed deliberately overwhelming. Told you, Bakugo muttered, sidling alongside Izuku. Most obvious pairing in the class. And the most challenging opponent, Izuku replied quietly. They're testing whether we can overcome personal history to face overwhelming odds together. We don't just overcome them, Bakugo stated with characteristic intensity. We win. Completely. As Aizawa finished announcing the remaining pairs, All Might himself appeared, resplendent in his Silver Age costume, trademark smile gleaming in the morning sunlight. Young heroes, he boomed enthusiastically. Today's examination represents a crucial step in your development. Facing experienced pros will demonstrate the gap between current ability and professional expectations. A humbling but necessary lesson. Despite the encouraging words, Izuku noted subtle tension in All Might's posture. The symbol of peace would be facing students who had seen his true form and knew his time limitations, including one who harbored power potentially rivaling his own. Each match will occur in a separate training ground, Nizu explained. Teams will have 10 minutes to strategize before entering their designated zones. Your faculty opponents will be waiting inside, already briefed on victory conditions. As the class dispersed toward preparation rooms, Izuku and Bakugo found themselves in a small concrete chamber containing a simple map of their assigned battle zone. An urban environment with multiple pathways between their starting point and the distant escape gate. So, Bakugo began without preamble. We're facing the #1 hero. Strategy? The direct approach was refreshingly practical, no posturing, no declarations of individual superiority, just tactical assessment of their challenge. All Might's strength is overwhelming, Izuku analyzed, studying the map carefully. Direct confrontation would be disadvantageous even with both of us at full power. His experience compensates for numerical advantage, so we avoid direct engagement. Bakugo concluded, surprising Izuku with his immediate strategic flexibility. Use your clones as distractions while we head for the exit? He'll anticipate that approach, Izuku cautioned. All Might knows our capabilities reasonably well, both your explosions and my chakra techniques. Standard evasion tactics would be predictable. Bakugo paced the small room, unusually thoughtful. What about your transformation? The golden mode you showed me. How does it compare to All Might's strength? Difficult to quantify precisely, Izuku replied honestly. In terms of raw power, Kurama chakra mode approaches All Might's level, but with different application parameters. His strength is consistent and refined through decades of experience. Mine is more versatile but less controlled at maximum output. Could you hold him off while I reach the exit? Bakugo asked directly. Not defeat him, just occupy him long enough? The proposal was surprising, Bakugo suggesting a plan where he wasn't the primary combatant. Izuku considered it carefully. Possibly, he acknowledged, but there's risk in splitting our forces. All Might could potentially neutralize me, then intercept you before you reach the gate. Then we need something unexpected, Bakugo concluded, explosions crackling briefly around his palms as he thought. Something he won't anticipate from either of us. As they continued strategizing, Izuku found himself appreciating Bakugo's tactical adaptability. Despite his aggressive persona, the explosive student was approaching their challenge with genuine analytical depth, considering options, evaluating approaches, even acknowledging his own limitations in certain scenarios. What if, Izuku suggested after several minutes of discussion, we appear to split up initially, but actually implement a coordinated assault designed to create a specific opening? Bakugo's eyes narrowed with interest. Go on. All Might will expect me to rely on shadow clones and you to use direct explosive attacks. What if we reverse roles? You create diversionary tactics with calculated explosions while I prepare a specific high-output technique, one that could momentarily neutralize even All Might's mobility. You have something that powerful? Bakugo asked skeptically. A technique I've been refining but haven't used in public yet, Izuku confirmed. An advanced wind-style application that could potentially immobilize All Might long enough for you to apply the restraints. The plan took shape rapidly after that, Bakugo contributing refinements to the timing and positioning, Izuku calculating chakra requirements and transformation parameters. By the time their preparation period ended, they had developed a strategy that played to both their strengths while defying expected patterns. As they entered the massive urban training ground, a voice boomed from overhead speakers. Practical examination team Midoriya Bakugo versus All Might begins now. You have 30 minutes to either restrain your opponent or reach the escape gate. The urban environment stretched before them, artificially constructed buildings creating a realistic cityscape with multiple pathways, ambush points, and tactical considerations. All Might was nowhere immediately visible, though his overwhelming presence could be sensed even at distance. "He'll let us make the first move," Izuku assessed quietly, "evaluating our approach before engaging. Then let's give him something to evaluate," Bakugo replied with a predatory grin. "Operation Reversal starts now." Without further discussion, they separated, Bakugo using his explosions to launch himself onto a nearby rooftop while Izuku dashed into a side alley, already forming hand seals for shadow clones. 5 perfect duplicates appeared, immediately spreading out through different routes, each creating obvious chakra signatures that All Might would undoubtedly detect. Meanwhile, the real Izuku concealed his presence, suppressing his chakra as Kurama had taught him, while moving stealthily toward their designated convergence point. The strategy's first phase unfolded precisely as planned. From his elevated position, Bakugo began creating calculated explosive distractions, not random destruction, but specifically timed detonations designed to simulate combat movement without revealing his actual position. All Might responded predictably, appearing in a blur of motion to engage what he perceived as Bakugo's direct assault. Coming through, his voice boomed as he crashed through a concrete barrier, fist extended toward the source of explosions. Finding only residual blast effects rather than Bakugo himself, the symbol of peace adapted instantly, changing direction to intercept one of Izuku's shadow clones that had deliberately revealed itself nearby. "Clever distraction, young Midoriya," All Might called as he dispatched the clone with a precision strike. "But I expected more coordinated effort from you and young Bakugo." The comment revealed All Might's tactical assumption that the students were operating independently despite being nominal partners. This misinterpretation was central to their strategy. As All Might systematically eliminated shadow clones while tracking Bakugo's explosive movements, the real Izuku reached the designated convergence point, a narrow thoroughfare that the symbol of peace would need to cross to effectively patrol the urban zone. In position, he communicated through a remaining clone that had established visual contact with Bakugo. "Transformation preparing." Bakugo acknowledged with a specific explosion pattern, then launched a more aggressive series of blasts, deliberately revealing his position to draw All Might's attention. The symbol of peace responded instantly, changing direction toward Bakugo's location with that distinctive blend of overwhelming power and precision that made him the world's greatest hero. His path would take him directly through Izuku's position, exactly as planned. Now Kurama, Izuku thought, connecting deeply with the fox's energy. Golden chakra erupted around his form, flowing outward to create the full Kurama chakra mode. Unlike previous manifestations, this transformation was performed with perfect integration, chakra flowing seamlessly between Izuku and Kurama without wasted energy or unnecessary display. As All Might approached the thoroughfare at tremendous speed, Izuku emerged from concealment, transformed, glowing with golden energy, chakra arms and tails fully manifested. "Young Midoriya," All Might acknowledged, adjusting his trajectory slightly but maintaining his forward momentum. "Finally showing your true capabilities. Excellent initiative." Rather than engaging directly, however, Izuku formed a complex sequence of hand seals, the preparation for his specialized technique. Wind style, vacuum prison. The advanced wind jutsu created an instant vacuum sphere around All Might's approaching form, a perfect circle of extracted air that would immobilize even the symbol of peace through simple physics, without air to push against. Even All Might's tremendous strength would momentarily lose effective leverage. The technique's impact was immediate and dramatic. All Might's forward momentum carried him into the vacuum sphere, but his ability to control his movements suddenly vanished, leaving him briefly suspended in a pocket of airlessness. "Now!" Izuku called, maintaining the chakra-intensive technique with visible strain. From above, Bakugo launched himself with a precisely calculated explosion, not toward All Might directly, but to a position that intersected the hero's suspended trajectory. In his hand gleamed the capture restraints, ready for application during this brief window of opportunity. For a breathtaking moment, it seemed their strategy might succeed completely, the unprecedented technique immobilizing All Might just long enough for Bakugo to secure the restraints. Then reality reasserted itself in the form of All Might's unparalleled experience and adaptability. Despite the vacuum immobilization, the symbol of peace managed to twist his body slightly, generating momentum through sheer muscular control rather than air resistance. The minuscule adjustment was enough to disrupt Bakugo's perfect approach, forcing him to overextend to reach the restraint target. Impressive innovation! All Might boomed, breaking free of the vacuum sphere through raw power as Bakugo missed his opportunity. But experience often trumps cleverness. With a controlled strike that demonstrated perfect restraint despite its power, All Might sent Bakugo tumbling toward a nearby building, not injuring him seriously, but definitely neutralizing his immediate offensive capacity. Izuku, still maintaining Kurama chakra mode but drained from the vacuum technique, shifted instantly to their contingency plan. Kaken, Route Beta. Understanding immediately, Bakugo used the momentum of All Might's strike to position himself for a strategic withdrawal, not retreating from battle entirely, but moving toward the secondary approach vector they had identified during planning. All Might turned his attention to Izuku, genuine respect evident despite his combat stance. That wind technique was remarkable, young Midoriya, creating a vacuum sphere capable of briefly immobilizing even my strength. Truly innovative application. Thank you, Izuku replied sincerely, golden chakra flowing around him as he prepared for the next phase. But the examination isn't over yet. Indeed not. All Might agreed enthusiastically. Show me what else you've developed since our training sessions. What followed was a breathtaking exchange of power and technique. All Might's refined strength and combat mastery against Izuku's chakra-enhanced capabilities. Golden chakra arms extended to counter All Might's strikes, while chakra tails created defensive perimeters against his blindingly fast approaches. His combat movement is more refined than yours, Kurama observed within their shared mindscape. But our sensory capabilities provide early warning his speed can't completely overcome. We don't need to defeat him, Izuku reminded the fox. Just occupy him long enough for Kaken to implement the secondary approach. The battle intensified as All Might recognized Izuku's delaying tactic. The symbol of peace increased his offensive pressure, forcing Izuku to employ increasingly complex defensive configurations. Multiple chakra arms working in concert with elemental techniques to maintain distance and prevent decisive engagement. Young Bakugo seems to have withdrawn from our contest. All Might called, attempting to provoke information as he systematically dismantled Izuku's defensive perimeter. Has your partnership already dissolved under pressure? Rather than responding verbally, Izuku created 3 shadow clones within his chakra cloak, each manifesting partial transformations that multiplied the golden limbs All Might needed to track and counter. The technique was chakra-intensive but effective, forcing the symbol of peace to divide his attention across multiple threats. Meanwhile, Bakugo was implementing their contingency strategy, using calculated explosions to maneuver through buildings toward the escape gate while remaining outside All Might's immediate sensory range. The approach wasn't simple retreat, but deliberate execution of their fallback plan. If capture proved impossible, reaching the gate would still constitute success. As the battle approached the 10-minute mark, Izuku felt the familiar strain of prolonged transformation. Even with their integration training, maintaining Kurama chakra mode while executing advanced techniques against All Might's relentless assault taxed his reserves significantly. 2 minutes remaining at current output, Kurama warned. Conserve energy or risk premature transformation collapse. Izuku acknowledged the warning, adjusting his defensive approach to maximize efficiency. All Might, with decades of combat experience, immediately recognized the subtle shift. Reaching your limit, young Midoriya? He called, not unkindly. No shame in that. Endurance develops with time and training. Not done yet, Izuku replied with determined focus. Chakra arms reconfiguring into more concentrated formations. Just as All Might prepared another assault, a massive explosion echoed from the direction of the escape gate, Bakugo's signal that he was approaching the final checkpoint of their contingency route. All Might's reaction was instantaneous, head turning slightly toward the distant detonation, body already adjusting to potentially intercept this new development. That momentary division of attention provided exactly the opening Izuku had been waiting for. Now, he thought to Kurama, channeling their remaining transformation energy into a single, explosive movement. Golden chakra concentrated around his legs as Izuku launched forward with unprecedented speed, closing the distance to All Might before the hero could fully refocus. Not attacking directly, but executing a precise maneuver they had discussed during strategy development. Chakra-enhanced fingers snapping around All Might's utility belt, where the symbol of peace had secured his own set of capture restraints. The move was so unexpected, so contrary to the defensive pattern Izuku had established, that even All Might's extraordinary reflexes couldn't completely counter it. By the time the hero redirected to protect the restraints, Izuku had already secured them, golden chakra arms extending the capture device toward All Might's wrist. For a breathtaking moment, it seemed the audacious strategy might succeed. The restraint mere centimeters from securing around the symbol of peace's arm. Then All Might demonstrated why he stood at the pinnacle of heroism, executing a counter-movement that somehow preserved his defensive integrity while simultaneously launching a precision strike at Izuku's extended chakra arm. The golden construct dispersed under the impact, the restraint falling harmlessly aside. Excellent attempt. All Might approved, genuine admiration in his booming voice. Using my momentary distraction to target my own restraints, truly creative thinking. Before Izuku could attempt another approach, their examination parameters shifted dramatically. The distant sound of the escape gate activating echoed across the training ground, followed by the announcement system declaring, Team Midoriya Bakugo examination complete. Gate successfully accessed. Pass. While Izuku had occupied All Might's full attention, Bakugo had reached their objective, executing the contingency strategy perfectly despite his natural preference for direct confrontation. All Might's smile somehow widened further as he relaxed his combat stance. Well done, both of you. Perfect execution of misdirection and objective prioritization. As the transformation receded, leaving Izuku in his normal state, exhaustion from the extended engagement washed over him. Creating distance between himself and All Might, he leaned against a partially destroyed wall, breathing heavily but smiling with genuine satisfaction. We actually did it, he murmured, still processing the successful outcome. We passed. Through genuine partnership, Kurama noted with approval, each contributing according to strengths rather than ego. Minutes later, Bakugo rejoined them, looking somewhat battered but undeniably pleased with their success. Told you it would work, he stated, characteristic confidence fully restored. The secondary approach was flawless. Indeed it was, young Bakugo, All Might agreed enthusiastically. While most students might have insisted on proving themselves through direct confrontation, you recognized the strategic advantage of objective completion over combat victory. Most impressive, the praise seemed to simultaneously satisfy and discomfit Bakugo, who merely grunted acknowledgement. As they departed the training ground together, All Might placed a hand on each student's shoulder. Your teamwork today demonstrated remarkable growth, not just in technique application, but in overcoming personal history to function effectively as partners. We had a common goal, Izuku explained simply. Winning required cooperation, so we cooperated. Exactly, All Might approved. The essence of professional heroism, prioritizing successful outcomes over individual glory. He focused particularly on Bakugo. Some lessons are harder for certain personality types, which makes your adaptation today especially significant. Young Bakugo. The explosive student shifted uncomfortably under the direct praise, but didn't reject it outright, another sign of his ongoing maturation. Later, as Class 1A gathered to review examination results, Izuku and Bakugo found themselves the center of considerable attention. Their success against All Might himself generated both congratulations and intensive questioning from classmates. You actually reached the gate while fighting All Might? Kirishima marveled, directing his question to Bakugo. That's so manly. Midoriya kept him occupied. Bakugo replied with unexpected honesty. The plan required both parts to succeed. The acknowledgement of Izuku's contribution, stated plainly without qualification or competitive diminishment, surprised many of their classmates. Uraraka caught Izuku's eye, raising an eyebrow in silent question about this apparent evolution in their relationship. Izuku simply smiled slightly, not elaborating. Some developments were better demonstrated through actions than explained through words. As the class dispersed following result announcements, Aizawa approached Izuku privately. Your transformation during the examination, the teacher noted without preamble. It was more controlled than previous manifestations, Training with Gran Torino proved beneficial. The integration concept he introduced made significant difference, Izuku confirmed. Treating Kurama's chakra as extension of my own energy rather than separate power source. Aizawa nodded, apparently satisfied with this explanation. Your partnership with Bakugo was unexpectedly effective as well. Perhaps there's hope for his teamwork capabilities after all. As the Erasure hero departed, Bakugo approached from the opposite direction, his expression unusually contemplative. That golden mode, he began without greeting. You could have maintained it longer, couldn't you? You were conserving energy even while fighting All Might. The observation was accurate, another demonstration of Bakugo's perceptive analysis beneath his aggressive exterior. Izuku nodded slightly. Kurama suggested conservation, he explained, in case the primary strategy failed completely and we needed sustained power for alternative approaches. Next time, Bakugo stated firmly, don't hold back. I want to see exactly what you and the fox can do at maximum output. His expression shifted to something almost resembling respect. Today worked because we both contributed, but I still need to know your actual ceiling. The declaration was pure Bakugo simultaneously acknowledging their successful partnership while re-establishing competitive parameters. Izuku couldn't help smiling slightly at the familiar dynamic, now evolved into something more mature but no less intense. Fair enough, he agreed. Though the same applies to you, I suspect you've been developing applications of your explosions beyond what you've shown publicly. Bakugo's predatory grin confirmed the assessment. Training camps coming up after break. Perfect opportunity to show each other exactly what we can do for future partnership optimization. The phrasing was telling, framing their ongoing rivalry within context of potential future collaboration rather than pure opposition. Another small but significant evolution in their complex relationship. As they parted ways, Izuku reflected on the examination's broader implications. Beyond simply passing a school requirement, the experience had demonstrated something fundamental about his hero journey with Kurama. Partnership amplified effectiveness, whether between Jinchuriki and Tailed Beast or between former rivals with complementary capabilities. The explosive one continues to surprise, Kurama commented as Izuku headed toward the dormitories. His strategic flexibility today was unexpected given his previous behavior patterns. Kaken adapts when winning requires it, Izuku replied thoughtfully. His pride demands victory more than it demands individual glory, a useful quality in potential allies, the fox observed. Though I suspect his cooperative tendencies remain selectively applied. Izuku smiled slightly at the assessment. Some things change gradually. Today was progress, acknowledging mutual contribution toward shared success. As the sun set on examination day, Izuku's thoughts turned toward the upcoming training camp mentioned by Bakugo. The intensive experience would provide opportunity to further refine techniques developed during internship, potentially exploring advanced manifestations beyond what he demonstrated against All Might. The path forward continued to evolve, partnerships developing, capabilities expanding, and the unique potential of a Jinchuriki in a world of heroes gradually revealing itself through carefully measured steps. Progress, one examination at a time. 2 arcs, one purpose. Deku's fight with Stain wasn't just a battle, it was a statement. And the exam against All Might? A glimpse of what he's growing into. Kurama's not holding back, and neither is he. But this was just the heat up. Part 3 is where it ignites. The forest training camp, the hideout raid, the next evolution of KCM, and Deku's true place in this war for peace. Help us push this series forward. Like the video, 150 likes unlocks the next chapter. Comment your favorite moment below. Subscribe so you never miss what happens next. Stay sharp, ChronoCrew. This fox still has fire to unleash.